leaders. Qualifications to achieve the rank of silver. Have at least 3 personally enrolled elite wellness advocates. Each elite wellness advocate needs an organisational volume of at least 3,000. Total monthly organisational volume is over 9,000. Since convention last year, 111 wellness advocates achieved the rank of silver for the first time in Australia and New Zealand. The global number of doTERRA Silver Wellness Advocates is now 5,490. Congratulations to all of our new silver leaders. Qualifications to achieve the rank of gold. Have at least 3 personally enrolled Premier Wellness Advocates. Each Premier Wellness Advocate needs an organisational volume of at least 5,000. Total monthly organisational volume is over 15,000. Since convention last year, over 30 wellness advocates achieved the rank of gold for the first time in Australia and New Zealand. The global number of doTERRA Gold Wellness Advocates is now 2,048. Congratulations to all of our new gold leaders. Platinums. Qualifications to achieve the rank of Platinum. Have at least 3 personally enrolled Silver Wellness Advocates. Each Silver Wellness Advocate needs an organisational volume of at least 9,000. Total monthly organisational volume is over 27,000. Since convention last year, 20 wellness advocates achieved the rank of platinum for the first time in Australia and New Zealand. The global number of doTERRA Platinum Wellness Advocates is now 696. Congratulations to all of our new Platinum leaders. Diamond. Qualifications to achieve the rank of Diamond. Have at least 4 personally enrolled Silver Wellness Advocates. Each Silver Wellness Advocate needs an organisational volume of at least 9,000. Total monthly organisational volume of at least 36,000. Since convention last year, 6 wellness advocates achieved the rank of Diamond for the first time in Australia and New Zealand. The global number of doTERRA Diamond Wellness Advocates is now 561. Congratulations to all of our new Diamond leaders. Carolyn Farrow, Sarah Jade Graham, Emmy Lou McCarthy, Li Ping Zhao, Nissa Tatai, Sarah G. Gordon.
Hey there, my name is Nissa Tatai and I went Diamond in November last year after building a doTERRA business since January in 2016. So my one piece of advice would be never to lose sight of your vision. So ensure that you surround yourself with people that embody that vision or are aligned with that vision, the doers, the dreamers, the goal kickers in life, and ensure that you have that vision stowed away strongly in your heart, so that whatever twists and turns that business life might throw your way or personal life, you continue to move forward in the direction of your goals and your vision.
Hi everyone, I'm Carolyn, and my beautiful community, the Abundant Oils community, arrived at Diamond in September 2020. But the point here is not arriving at Diamond. The point is never, ever losing the belief that you can create change. You can impact someone else's life in such incredible ways with our beautiful oils. So don't stop believing the power and the impact, the love that you can share with another human being, and don't ever stop using your oils.
Hi, my name is Sarah Jade and I am one of doTERRA's 2021 Diamonds. If there is one thing I can recommend for your business, is be a storyteller. Show people why they need these essential oils in their home and how it can change their lifestyle. Your business journey is to connect a person with doTERRA and let everything else happen.
大家好，我是方教老师 KK， 在这里祝福大家新的一年里万事如意，身体健康，心想事成。在这里也非常感谢公司给我们提供了这么好的精油产品，让我们有机会把自己的所学和所会分享给身边的人。在新的一年里，我也会继续和我的伙伴们共同的倡导自主健康的芳香生活，让更多人受益，让家家户户用精油。
Hi guys, my name is Sarah. I hit Diamond in the middle of 2020, and if I could give you any advice on this journey, it would be to do it every day. Do it imperfectly. Do it in any crack you have to make this work, and I promise you, if you just keep stepping into it day after day after day, you will get there. I promise you, and it will be amazing.
Sarah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Rochelle. I'm so excited. Thank you.
What is the biggest lesson you learned on the road to Blue Diamond?
I think my biggest lesson would be that it's never going to be a perfect and easy ride. But for me, I had to learn to grow and be uncomfortable and try new things and know that I'm in the business of people. So for me, it was the people who always have to be first, whether it be my customer, whether it be somebody who was doing the business under me. If I wasn't there fostering that relationship and putting that kind of above everything else, at the end of the day, I was going to have no business. And I think when you're working with people, you have to have an open mind. You have so many big conversations and everybody has so much going on in their world. And if you can't be open to that and work with people around what they're working through, whether it be a customer or a builder, I think that your business is going to struggle. And so for me, it was a really big lesson to just open myself up and try and work with everybody in a way that was new to me.
I love that. So what advice for anyone wanting to move up for the ranks would you have?
Do you know what? I have said this to my team many, many, many times. So when they say this, they'll be like, she's telling the truth. I think everybody is looking for the quick fix. Everybody is looking for the quick way there. And I think if you actually put in the work and you just do every single day, do within your capacity, even like an inch out of your capacity, and you just do, and you're in it for the long term and you're in it for the right reasons, you will go forward. There is nothing you can do in this business that will put you backwards except for doing nothing. And if you're doing nothing, you won't go forward. And I think I never got hung up on perfection. I never got hung up on who was working harder around me or what somebody else was doing. I just worked hard myself. I worked hard every single day, and I can just about assure everybody, if you just do, instead of trying to make everything perfect, you will go forward without doubt. So I have built my whole business super imperfectly. I have like quite a long way to go. I need to get some systems in place for my team. I need to actually get a website. I need to do a few things. But to be honest with you, for me, everything is empowering my community, empowering the beautiful people who are under me in terms of business as well. And I want to find a way to educate more. Like the more we can educate, the more we can empower people into lifestyle change in this space. For me, it is like the reason I wake up. So I'm just really hoping that we can continue to show up to educate and be authentic in that. And the more we continue to show up and educate, I just hope that my community just grows and grows and grows, because that means I know that we're getting, these little tools into people's homes, and they are quite literally changing the way we all live. So for me, it's more education and bigger community, but without losing that beautiful community feel as well.
There's no limit, right?
No, there is no limit. It's just, I just want to keep going. That's what I want to do. I want to keep going as far as I can go and take as many people with me as I can. The more people to sit at our table, the better.
The journey to Presidential Diamond is a glorious challenge navigated successfully by only a select few. Over the last 12 months, this club welcomed 2 new additions,
Tracy Fry was simply looking to make peppermint chocolate using pure peppermint that wasn't synthetic. doTERRA kept appearing in her search, and soon she was hooked. And once her sister Joanne Ling saw how impactful Easy Air was with her daughter, they joined forces to become one of doTERRA Australia and New Zealand's newest presidential diamonds. Tracy and Joe, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
What is the biggest lesson you learned on the road to presidential diamond?
The lesson. I don't think there is just a lesson that you learn on the road to presidential diamond. There's many, many aspects that come with reaching presidential diamond. So
Yeah, absolutely. Probably for me, the biggest thing would be I needed to learn to trust myself more during that like presidential month, and even leading up to and even now sometimes, we second guess ourselves and we worry what we're doing. Is it right? Is it wrong? What's happening here? But really trusting ourselves and really backing ourselves.
yeah.
We're lucky we have each other, but yeah, really backing ourselves.
And the team as well. We needed to make sure that everybody was on board, everybody knew what was going on. Communication hasn't been a strong point of ours with our team, so we needed to make sure that we kept that communication going, and just like Trace said, really backing ourselves and our team, because we couldn't have done it if we hadn't done that.
No, business is hard, and it was great fun.
It was interesting.
So what advice would you have for anyone wanting to move up the ranks?
Okay.
All right. So I think the first piece of advice that I would give to people wanting to move up the ranks is you need to know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
You need to have your avatar, your ideal customer, and you need to be constantly speaking to that person. You need to have your niche and narrow down on what your niche is in business, because I think where a lot of people get unstuck is they're trying to service everyone. They're trying to talk to everyone, and that just doesn't narrow down your business and make it unique.
Which I'll butt in there, which is a little bit what we tried to do in our presidential month. We got a little lost at the start, and we kept coming back. We know our avatar, or what we call our avatar, our ideal customer. We know her really well, and that whole time, and we had to keep coming back and remembering, hang on, we just need to talk to Alice.
That's her name.
That's her name, right? And so when we realised that as well, and this is anyone wanting to rank advance, I totally agree with Joe, is knowing who she is, and it is or he, but it is that one person. Oh man, it makes it so different, so easy.
Yeah.
Or easier.
The other thing I would say is that invest in your business as well with personal and professional development. We actually hired a business coach before we started paying ourselves, and I don't believe you need to hire and spend money early on in the days like we do. I mean, I think it's a good idea, but you don't have to. But you need to be coaching with someone, whether that's your upline,
your account manager.
Yeah, I was about to say, depending on what rank you are, your account manager. And if you don't resonate with your upline, that's okay as well. But there's so much help out there.
Yeah.
You need to go and get it and do it, but take the action. If there's no action, there's no business.
The other thing is unfollow. If you are comparing yourself to others, unfollow, because comparing yourself and being inspired by someone are two different things. So if you're comparing yourself to someone and that's making you feel less and making you feel sad and not worthy, unfollow those people, remove them out of your life, because being inspired by someone is a totally different thing, and you can see that difference there when you start talking that way as well.
You can have your blinkers on sometimes.
Yeah.
100%. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the biggest challenge on the road to Presidential Diamond?
Apart from a pandemic?
Tiredness, our families, lack of sleep.
Did we mention a worldwide pandemic?
Did we mention there was a pandemic?
So even aside from that was probably the biggest challenge, was I think that For us, what has held us back from Presidential Diamond for a long time is our weaker legs. I think every team has weak legs. It shouldn't be a taboo subject. It shouldn't be a secret.
And it shouldn't be shameful.
No, God, no. And so we were like, realised we had to change our mindset and realise Presidential Diamond was a goal for us. It was a goal for definitely a lot of our team. But then, of course, we had those weaker legs. And so we decided that we needed to own that. We needed to move forward with that and not let that hold us back. And once we changed our mindset around, we're not going to let that hold us back, that was when we flew. That was when we just went, let's go. And we did.
You totally did. So how has it been achieving it together?
Heaps of fun. Look at us. So much fun achieving it together. I couldn't imagine anyone else to do this with. Pretty happy that Jo let me into her little biz way back at the start. So there's that. And I don't know, we're sisters, right? So how good, you can't get any better.
I think, I don't know how, I'm not sure how I would go without, I feel a bit emotional. That's weird.
It is emotional though, and it should be, because it was fun, hard, terrifying, scary, exciting, exhilarating, sleep deprived. It was all of these things in 1 month. Like it's like having a newborn baby all over again. Like you just don't know where to go and what to do. And I think having each other to do that with, if I'm just talking from myself as well, I don't know, it was all of that. But I got to do it with not just my best friend, but my sister.
Oh, thanks, Trina. Yeah, pretty cool. We're very, very blessed. I know that a lot of people wish that they, had a bit of a partnership too, because I think it is really hard on your own. That's why you need that coach. That's why you need that accountability partner. Everyone needs an accountability partner.
During that month, hitting that goal, there were so many times where if I was doubting something we were doing or something we were posting or something we were sharing, Jo was like, no, this is going to be right. This is going to happen, da-da-da-da-da. And then she would then doubt something and, no, I'm not sure. And I'd be like, Jo, it's going to be fine. Like, let's just do this, So having someone in your corner with no filter on it, like as sisters, we get to talk really openly with each other, but you need someone like that. So you need to find someone in your corner that you can have conversations with zero filter and zero fear of, are they going to think something bad, or they're going to think I don't, you don't want that. So find someone in your corner.
That's the cool thing about doTERRA. There's a lot of side sisters and brothers to chat with.
100%. We're all a family, right? It's
totally, absolutely.
So you went on the 2019 Vietnam incentive trip. How exciting was that experience?
Vietnam was awesome.
Amazing.
We've been on a few now, Fiji and Uluru. But Vietnam was wicked. I mean, you can't beat an incentive trip.
They're my favourite, I have to say. Sorry, but they're my favourite. I love convention, but oh my God, incentive trips are my all-time favourite.
Yeah. We've seriously met some of our lifelong friends on incentive trips. Yeah. And they're phenomenal. They're just so amazing.
You also went to Guatemala. How did that experience impact you?
I don't even know how to describe travelling to Guatemala for a co-impact sourcing trip. It was life-changing. We grew up in a third world country or spent time in Papua New Guinea, so we knew some aspects of what to expect. So that part of it wasn't a shock to us, or wasn't maybe as impactful as some other people. But for us, it was going up to the village and playing games and blowing bubbles and painting nails of all the little kids. And Jo got to go into the Days for Girls discussion and witness that. And we took our husbands and, again, doing it together. But seeing the harvesters, the growers, and hearing their stories, and even though there was a language barrier, the second they would mention doTERRA, even though we couldn't understand any other word they said, they would say doTERRA, and their faces would like become these massive big smiles. And so that you just knew they were so proud to work with our company or this company, and their lives were forever changed by doing that. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, that's what I got out of it as well, is just seeing the farmers. They were just so proud. It really drums home to me once again. We get all these light bulb moments, but once again it made like me personally, and I'm pretty sure Tracy as well, go, yeah, this is a pretty good company.
Yeah.
Like, this is amazing, this business, and we're with the right people.
It really is. The co-impact sourcing trips are seriously, it's just a life-changing experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It really should be on everyone's bucket list. Like, that's a huge reason to get to Diamond, because if you get to go on one of them, your life will be changed. Like, you can't regret it. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
What does the word purity mean to you?
Purity in the doTERRA business cultured world would mean, to me, the founders are true to their word. The mission statement is exactly what they're trying to do. An oil in every home. It means that they're not going to adulterate their essential oils. They've always spoken so highly that their essential oils are the purest in the world. And to me, that's what purity means in doTERRA, is nothing fake in that bottle of oil. It needs to be from the plant itself.
Jazz Jervis is a woman with zero excuses, who is loaded with motivation and drive, leads by example, and is her team's biggest cheerleader. Jazz has an essence about her that makes people feel seen, loved, and cared for as they join her team. Her aim is to help others, particularly mothers, to keep their family as happy and healthy as possible. Thanks, Jazz, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
What is the biggest lesson you learned on the road to Presidential Diamond?
The biggest lesson that I learned on the road to Presidential Diamond was to focus on who I was being. So what activities would I be doing if I was already a Presidential Diamond? And I took action from that place from day one in my business. What decisions would I make? How would I show up? How would I be? How would I act every day if I was coming from that place? I think particularly in network marketing, we talk so much about, what are the income producing activities that you do in your business? What are the things that are moving everything forward, which is so important. We must take action in order to move our business forward. But the first step before we even get there is to think about the energy in which we are actually taking action. Do we believe that we are the best person, to guide our customers? Do we believe that there are customers out there ready and willing to work with us? Because when we can show up from that place and be in that energy, that's when we really start to magnetize people to us, and the actions that we're doing on a day-to-day basis have a little bit more oomph. So the biggest lesson that I learned is that we can do all of the activities all day long, but who we are being and who we believe we are on the inside is the most important thing.
So what advice would you have for anyone wanting to move up the ranks?
I've got two pieces of advice. The first is that consistency trumps intensity. So we talk a lot in network marketing about massive action, taking massive action in our business. And yes, that's amazing. I love when we're running, and achieving new ranks. That's so exciting, and it's amazing to rise together. But at the end of the day, the most important thing that will move our business forward is consistency. And I love the quote by Jim Rohn when he says that success is doing ordinary things extraordinarily well. And that is what I wholeheartedly believe in, that the things that I do on a day-to-day basis and the things that my team does it's not particularly innovative or, these crazy, extraordinary things that nobody else is doing. We've just been really, really consistent. So while massive action is, a really amazing thing to have in your business, and particularly if you're looking to move through the ranks quite quickly, like our team did, is to be consistent. Massive action is great, but not if it falls, flat after 3 or 4 weeks. The second piece of advice is to make decisions from a place of possibility, not circumstance. And what that really means is if everything that I wanted from this decision manifested exactly the way that I wanted it to, what action would I take right now? And that really means that we're making a decision from a place of our highest self, because what happens is when we make decisions from a place of circumstance, the result that we get is more circumstance. So if it is looking to, whether it's a decision about hiring someone in our business, asking for support, hiring a cleaner at home, or whatever it might be, sitting with that decision and saying, if everything that I wanted from this worked out exactly the way that I planned, what action would I take right now? Because what that means is we're acting from a place of possibility, and that's when we can start to create a huge ripple effect in our business.
This business is all about action. So what was the biggest challenge on the road to Presidential Diamond?
Oh, the $1 million question. I think the biggest challenge for us was, we all were working towards this collective goal and we were all on the same page. Logistically, we are in a whole range of different locations, as a lot of people are in doTERRA. Out of all of our, myself and my 6 qualifying leaders, my platinums, we're all in different states. So we've got South Australia, Western Australia, New South Wales, Queensland, WA. I was in New South Wales when we ranked Presidential Diamond. I'm now in Western Australia. We're all over the place. And so trying to even just logistically organize, a call to be like, right, where are we at? What's going on here? We'd communicate in messages and on the phone and things like that. But a huge challenge was actually getting everyone organized and putting all the pieces together. It's one of those things that it's kind of like a Tetris thing going on, or a little bit like a jigsaw puzzle where everyone's moving towards this collective goal, everyone's taking massive action, but then you've also got to get to the end and sit and think, okay, are all of our ducks in a row? And trying to organize all of the time zones when life is happening around everyone. Everyone's got children and some have jobs and things going on. That could be a little bit challenging.
So how are you able to cope with that when that is happening? How did you get around that experience?
Yeah, so for us, we were all on the same page. So at the end of the day, we always came back to that. We always came back to our collective goal, which for us, ranking Presidential Diamond right in the middle of what was, probably one of the most challenging years that a lot of us will experience in our lifetime, 2020. We ranked in July. And so we had a collective goal to reach Presidential Diamond because we had our own personal goals and goals as a team. But a big reason why we really, really pushed in that month was so that we could rank for the market as well. We really, really wanted to inject some energy and some positivity and some light and some inspiration right when we felt people really needed it. We hadn't experienced a large rank advancement in the Australian New Zealand market for a while, and we really felt called and pulled to be the team that provided that. And so whenever things got a little bit challenging and, try and call someone, they don't answer, or you're waiting for a response back and you get into that, little moment of frustration, we just all come back to that and remind ourselves we're working towards this collective goal. And we also knew as well that this would be, kind of the last time that we all ranked together. We've had a really unique experience in our team where, for Diamond, Blue Diamond and Presidential Diamond, we have all achieved the rank at the same time. So when we ranked Blue Diamond, all of our golds ranked gold in the same month. And when we achieved Presidential Diamond, they all ranked platinum. So that's a really unique situation that we are in that not all teams get to experience. And we really wanted to cherish that because we knew that this was the last time that we were going to get together on Zoom after we saw the rank come up in the back office, maybe with a little cheeky glass of champagne to celebrate together. We'd celebrate individuals as they achieve their, new ranks, as our platinums move to diamond and beyond. But this would be the last time that we would all be together in this situation. And so we really just came back to that whenever things were feeling a little bit challenging. And that, was our home, I guess, for that time.
So good. Oh, I love that. So you were the grand prize winner of the 2019 Vietnam incentive trip. How exciting was that experience?
It was amazing. And not long after that, we also, my husband and daughter went to New Caledonia on the next incentive trip. And then we were so fortunate to be in Guatemala as well on a co-impact sourcing trip. So I feel like all of the opportunities that we've had to travel with doTERRA and be involved in that way is just, it's amazing.
What does the word purity mean to you?
So when I think of the word purity in the context of doTERRA, it takes me straight back to Guatemala, where I was so lucky, my husband and I were so lucky to be able to go on a co-impact sourcing trip to Guatemala, where doTERRA sources cardamom essential oil from. And co-impact sourcing has been something that you read about and you watch the incredible co-impact sourcing videos. One of my favorite ones is Pink Pepper and Kenya. I love that story. And it fills you up, but until you see it in person, I don't feel like it can have the type of impact that it truly, truly needs to have. Like, it's such an amazing thing to witness, but to be there, one of the things that really landed for my husband and I was doTERRA says, they do what they say they're going to do. They say, I'm going to commit to this and I'm going to be in this community, and this is the impact that we're going to have, and we're going to support them in this way. And we can see that, we can watch the videos and we can read about that, but to actually be there and see, they actually do what they say they're going to do. And it's the same thing, when we talk about leadership in a network marketing business, we want to work with people that do what they say they are going to do when they say they're going to do it. Who doesn't want to work with a leader like that? And it's the same thing when you're aligning with a company. And that really landed with me when we were there, that, we can read all of this and we can see that all of this is happening, but to be there in person and see they actually do what they say they're going to do, that level of transparency and commitment, to me, that's what purity means in the context of doTERRA.
I loved my teacher experience. I personally love Claude, and I love seeing the family business behind it, and I love kind of chatting to the workers. And Claude just gave this golden quote earlier, which I probably won't be able to recite, but he talked about basically quality over quantity, and he talked about how that you have the comfort of knowing that your oil is the best. And to me, that just sank, and I was like, I just will never ever look at tea tree the same again.
The best oil, the best essential oil, pure Australian Melaleuca planifolia oil, tea tree. This oil has a great ecological story. It's a problem tree here, it's an invading tree here, and we can turn that invading tree into a wonderful product. It's got an amazing aroma profile, and it's clean, green New Zealand air in a bottle.
We've been fortunate to partner with doTERRA, and that's enabled us to develop a plantation on a large scale. so that we can get more of this Manuka oil out to the world. Manuka's been, you know, a big part of my life for the last 30 years actually, and you know, I feel privileged to work with a plant that has so many benefits that it can offer.
Hello everybody, my name is Tim Valentiner. I'm the Vice President of Global Strategic Sourcing for doTERRA, and it's my great pleasure to speak with you today. The essential oil market has been seeing substantial growth over the past year, which has presented both challenges to doTERRA's operations team, as well as significant positive impact for our partner essential oil producers on the other side of the bottle. Just in the Australia-New Zealand market alone, sales jumped by 67% from January to March of 2020, and then demand remained relatively high compared to January pre-COVID. The Australia-New Zealand market also wasn't alone in this trend. Across the globe, doTERRA saw an unprecedented increase in sales as more people sought pure and natural essential oils as part of their health and wellness. Year on year, our global sales as a company in 2020 increased by 17%. And while that is a true testament to the importance of doTERRA products and health and wellness in general, this huge surge didn't come without its challenges. With this surge in demand and the global pandemic, we quickly established a few key priorities. First and foremost, safety. doTERRA needed to prioritize the health and safety of our employees in our warehouse and product fulfillment centers. That, along with government-mandated work from home orders, meant that even while sales were soaring, our workforce effort was initially slowed drastically, making it difficult to keep up with filling orders. Thankfully, our production team was up to the task, and our production facility prioritized ramping up production, and it significantly increased its capacity, which has been absolutely remarkable given the circumstances. Our doTERRA manufacturing department, our oil filling operation, and output reached an all-time high from June to August last year, filling 8 to 10 million bottles per month, all while operating under these challenging circumstances. Near the end of 2020, these teams broke almost every record that had been established before in refining, blending, and bottling. It is truly an amazing feat, and we are so grateful for their hard work to make this happen. Another priority was to find ways to ship raw oil and finished goods despite significant delays, as major retailers globally had sales move heavily online. This increase in online sales strained demand on delivery companies and ultimately slowed delivery times for everyone. That's something we are still dealing with today as much as we were last March, and even more so in some cases. Specifically for Australia and New Zealand, though, a major setback was ocean shipments, which saw delays of up to 30 days and recent strikes that affected 6 of your market's shipment areas. Finally, my team in sourcing has had to coordinate with our sourcing partners all around the world more than ever before due to the sudden increase in raw oil that we needed fast. Our sourcing partners rose to the occasion, producing pure oil in the quantities that we needed and getting it here as fast as humanly possible. In one of our key blends, On Guard, which experienced a huge surge in demand, our sourcing team dealt with the urgency to find raw oil in quantities that were almost quite literally off the charts. Suddenly, we were asking suppliers if they had 3, 5, 10 times the normal amount of oil that we usually needed in order to avoid stocking out of products. We saw this major increase across all oils. doTERRA focused on sourcing oils that were experiencing high demand during COVID, but as you can see, our total oil sourcing for 2020 drastically increased, just to keep up with all of you. Each oil requires so much detail and planning, and we were quite fortunate that our team was already strategically positioned to handle this surge. Despite the inability to travel and work with our sourcing partners on the ground, with 2/3 of our sourcing team already based in strategic locations around the world, we were set up to be able to continue working very closely with all of our partners to ensure execution. And I'm so proud to work with this amazing team that is literally spread all over the globe and that is able to work directly and closely in coordination with each other virtually, but also together with our partners based in each of these regions. Over the past 12 months, we have learned a lot and adapted our approach in operations and sourcing as needed. The growth of the last year has prepared us to work through future challenges that accompany the continued uncertainty of COVID-19. But we are better prepared than ever before for potential future disruptions that the pandemic or others may cause in our global supply chains, as well as keeping up with the increased demand in the personal care space and precautions around the world that remain in flux. It isn't possible to predict the future, of course, of supply or demand, and knowing if they'll be completely stable in the coming weeks or even months. But we are confident in our progress as a company to meet your demands with pure and natural essential oils. We've worked around the clock to boost our inventory levels globally, adding an additional year of inventory to our key oils to create an even bigger buffer and safety stock. And as an operations management team under the direction of Senior Vice President Sean Pointer, we meet weekly to thoroughly review supply status and keep a close eye on all and any hotspots around the world, and of course including our wonderful Australia-New Zealand market. Our increased capacity at our production facilities and new fulfillment centers have really positioned doTERRA to continue rising to any challenge. We're even looking into producing some products in market there in Australia, which would help avoid delays in shipping and out-of-country production. That's all still in the works though. And of course, doTERRA will continue to strengthen our sourcing partnerships, developing long-term relationships in our global botanical network to secure the oils we need and when we need them, and all being done in an ethical manner. These sourcing partnerships help us provide support to those who are producing these oils, the farmers and the harvesters all around the world, of course. From 2019 to 2020, our ethical sourcing efforts have significantly impacted the number of jobs supported in sourcing, increasing to now in 2020 to a total of 300,892 jobs supported, with a total of 1.6 million lives impacted through jobs supported and social impact initiatives around the world through our global co-impact sourcing program. That's now affecting more than 1.6 million people through these jobs and these initiatives. We are so proud to have so many lives globally through our sourcing the most pure and potent essential oils to be having such an impact to improve lives. And what's really awesome is if you take a look at more behind these numbers, of these 300,000 plus jobs, 92,350 of them are farmers. And of those farmers, 49% of them are women, and 72,000 plus are small farmers, meaning they have less than 10 acres. And then also of these 300,000 jobs, 107,000 of these are wild harvesters working within our global botanical network sourcing. With small farmers and wild harvesters all being represented by 57% women. We have always wanted this to be the case in theory, and now to see our numbers and data validated this year, we are truly able to focus and empower small farmers and women working in rural areas. And this is incredibly exciting and rewarding. And we want to keep doing even more, of course. We will continue with this focus on smallholder farmers in rural areas and empowering women in rural areas and being able to do so through our co-impact sourcing initiatives. We have a wonderful opportunity to positively impact on both sides of the bottle with our co-impact sourcing efforts that help us to create shared value for all of those involved in the supply chain, and then of course providing you with the very best the earth has to offer. One focus of co-impact sourcing is environmental stewardship, which is exceptionally demonstrated in New Zealand through our distillery there, Aotearoa's Waste to Wilderness program. As you know, doTERRA's Douglas fir oil is produced from distilling the needles and branches from plantations in New Zealand as those plantations are being eliminated, as well as wild harvesting and distilling pre-coning young Douglas fir trees, which is an invasive species in New Zealand and overtaking many of these wild growing areas. The Waste to Wilderness program is amazing in that it takes the post-distilled Douglas fir wood chips and combines them with food waste from local restaurants and grocery store chains to make an incredible mulch for composting. This composting effort makes productive use of the 2.5 tons of food waste per week in the Queenstown area that would otherwise end up in a landfill and producing carbon emissions. By doing this, we're able to reduce the carbon footprint by about the equivalent of one person driving a car for 12 months. The compost is then used to grow native seedlings in donated pallets and later replanted to restore the local biodiversity. This program addresses several environmental issues: control of invasive species and their eradication so that the native species can flourish once again, waste reduction, of course, and also cultivating proactively new native species to be able to regrow in these areas. So far, we've been able to support the planting of about 10,000 new native seedlings in New Zealand. And in addition, our team has been working closely with local schools and the local government to expand our efforts. Another area in which we focus in co-impact sourcing is, of course, social impact. And one I wanted just to highlight today is what we are doing in Somaliland. We are so excited to be able to continue supporting our frankincense harvesting communities in the Sanag region, which is truly the heart of frankincense area within Somaliland. The doTERRA Healing Hands Foundation has supported the building of the Sanag Specialty Hospital, which you've heard about the past couple of years. We are so close to having this finally open and fully operational, which unfortunately got delayed a bit with COVID this past year. But with this hospital, it will be accessible to more than 500,000 people in a very rural area with full accident and emergency care, outpatient, maternity ward, pediatrics, and a diagnostic care unit. This hospital that is already providing remote services will be fully operational later this year, and we're really trying to target to have that be by mid-year, by May or June. This will be able to provide the first ever primary and secondary care services for this area that badly needs it and has some of the highest child, infant, and maternal mortality rates in the entire world. We are grateful for the Healing Hands Foundation funding, of course, and to the several of our sourcing team members that have literally worked through blood, sweat, and tears to bring all of this together and help make this hospital dream a reality in truly one of the most remote corners of the world. We are so excited to have a qualified and committed medical team in place who are dedicated to serving these communities. And they are made up by local Somali team members as well as some Kenyans that have all been involved with providing healthcare services in rural areas. We truly have a dream team set up there. The Sanag Specialty Hospital is part of doTERRA's more extensive and more expansive overall responsible frankincense strategy, which ensures ethical and responsible sourcing of frankincense through social impact and environmental stewardship in Ethiopia, Oman, and of course, Somaliland. The strategy focuses on improving frankincense sustainability through harvesting trainings, data collection, and propagation, planting baby frankincense trees. And with over 100,000 frankincense trees that will be planted to strengthen and sustain the frankincense population, this will help us ensure continued growth of the Carteri, the Boswellia Carteri freriana species throughout this region, and ensure overall responsible stewardship. Although it's been extremely challenging and difficult, and we are working closely with as many that are interested globally to do this with us, we truly are leading the charge globally in terms of ensuring the long-term future of these critically important Boswellia trees. And we will continue to do so very proactively. Co-impact sourcing is really at the heart of what we do and the why. This is our why. And despite what the last year has presented to us, I personally come to work every day knowing that we are making a difference in the lives of hundreds of thousands of farmers and harvesters spread throughout the world. And you can feel and know that too by everything you do to empower your teams and to train others on what makes doTERRA different as a true change maker for good in the world, both in terms of health and wellness, of course, but also in terms of social impact. Thank you so much again for all that you do and for allowing us to keep up with you. And we truly are doing as much as possible, despite difficult circumstances with COVID and other factors, to keep up with the growth. And so on behalf of the operations team and our sourcing team, we wish you all the best and continued success, and very much looking forward to safely being able to see each other in person sometime very soon.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for welcoming us today. My name is Emily Bell, and I am part of the doTERRA Global Sourcing Team. I am based in Australia, in Perth, in Western Australia, and I'm part of the team that is spread all around the world so that we can work at source on the ground with our partner suppliers. Being based in Perth, I look after the oil that we source in Australia and in New Zealand, of course, but also the ones from Vietnam and China with the help of Simon, who's based in Shanghai, as well as Indonesia, Vietnam, and Sri Lanka. We actually source more than 170 oils from 45 countries now. So we do need a very full team of people spread all around the world to handle all of that. And of course, always looking at potential new oils. So we are based on, we've got sourcing managers like myself based on every continent. So which is very unique in the industry. So before moving on to talking to you about the specific oils that we source in Australia and New Zealand, I thought I would just give you a reminder about what we do as part of the global sourcing team. What are our objectives? So our objectives are, number one, to ensure that we source the highest quality possible essential oils. So that means that the oils are pure and they are natural. And of course, to keep up with all your hard work and all the sales, we need to secure large volumes that keep growing all the time. So in order to do that, we really need to create and sustain long-term partnerships with our suppliers, partners around the world. So it is really to be at the source and working with our partners within our global botanical network. When we do that, working with all the different supply chains that we work with, we really focus on principles which are our guiding principles. Setting up or working with an existing supply chain means that we want to create and sustain jobs. We want to make sure that the fair and on-time payments are provided to everyone involved in the supply chain. We're also here to help our partners build their capacity. So whether it comes from dealing with the raw material or the actual equipment, about the distillations themselves. So once again, to ensure that we need to sustain long-term partnerships, so work very closely on the ground with all our partners. What we call co-impact sourcing within doTERRA is really to ensure those principles are met and to ensure as well that the fair labor conditions, are used with amongst all the supply chain. We encourage and we promote as well cooperatives because it's really helpful for farmers, especially in certain countries, to actually be part of a cooperative so they can learn from each other and work together. We also want to ensure that all the process in the supply chain really follow strict environmental stewardship. So whether it comes to following local and international laws and recycling of waste or water, for instance, and also we want to help implement projects to help the local community. So we often do that with the Healing Hands Foundation in sourcing locations to really help the communities that are involved with the supply chain. So what do we call co-impact sourcing? Co-impact sourcing really, we define it that by the fact that we really want to create a shared value for all the stakeholders within the supply chain. So to do that, once again, we need to be at the source. That's a prerequisite because we need to know the people, we need to know the process so that we can have full traceability. And we also want to, ensure on an environmental stewardship and also looking at social impact projects. So, of course, co-impact model can be very different in different countries because the needs are different. I mean, what we would do in Kenya would be different to what we do like in Guatemala or in India or in the US or in Australia and New Zealand. So before we move on to, the different oils that we source in our part of the world here, I wanted to close that section with this slide, which reinforces our commitment to you as a sourcing team. Number one, it's to ensure the ethical and sustainable supply of the highest quality possible, pure and natural essentials. So working with all our expert producers in the region, and also to make a positive difference in the life of the farmers, the harvesters, the distillers, and their communities within those supply chains. So really, our core mission is to source the best and help the most. So now on to this, the latest sourcing map to show you a few of the 170 oils that we source all around the world. Of course, not all the oils are represented here for confidential and proprietary reasons, but I thought I'd just focus a little bit more on our part of the world. So as I mentioned, beside Australia and New Zealand, I also work very closely with Simon in China to source oils from China. The ones you would be familiar with would probably be osmanthus, lycia, magnolia, star anise, cassia, sweet gum, which goes in adaptive. And there's a few local oils as well in China used, such as Schisandra and Angelica, for instance. In Indonesia, patchouli, also one of my favorites, and citronella, but also cananga and nutmeg. And in Vietnam, we focus on cassia and ginger, whereas in Sri Lanka, it's more about cinnamon. So in Australia and New Zealand, I'll speak a little bit more about each of the oils in a second, but we'll talk about tea tree, sandalwood, eucalyptus, lemon myrtle, and Buddha wood, whereas in New Zealand, our focus is on Douglas fir and manuka. So to start with, I'd like to talk to you about sandalwood sourcing in Australia. So this is one of my favorite oil and quite close to my heart as I used to work with sandalwood prior to joining doTERRA. So the Santalum album that we source from Western Australia comes from plantations that were set up actually more than 25 years ago. With the demand for sandalwood oil in India, they're facing issues with deforestation and illegal harvesting. So the government here actually were looking into developing plantations in the Kimberleys at that time, and a few companies, including our partners, came along. And so very large plantations of sandalwood trees can be seen in the Kimberleys, but the distillation happens in Perth. And very, very interesting tree. The sandalwood is a hemiparasitic tree, so it means that it actually feeds on other trees to grow. So even in the nursery, as a seedling, it will be planted with another tree to feed off, planted together, and then will also tag along and connect to roots of other trees planted around it. So it's very complex, very interesting. Our supply partner look after those trees, and they harvest them when they're about 15 years old, and the oil is extracted through steam distillation of the heartwood in the trees. So the the plantations are in the Kimberleys, as I mentioned, but the distillation is in Perth, and that's because in Perth they have access to natural gas for the boilers. So it's a very environmentally focused operation. Not only natural irrigation system are used in the plantations through the Old River irrigation system, but they also have goats running around in the plantations eating the weeds, and they're doing some trials with different bugs and insects to prevent other bugs and insects from infesting the trees. And as I mentioned, the natural gas is used for the distillation in Perth. And on the social level, the plantations being set up in the Kimberleys mean that they make sure they integrate in their operations, local indigenous communities, which is great to see. The next oil I'll mention is Buddha wood, also a very special and unique oil for the Australia and New Zealand market. It's quite a dark oil, and it's used as a single in Australia and New Zealand. I don't think it is anywhere else in the world, but it's also used in blends such as Amavi, for instance. So interestingly, Buddha wood is actually considered an invasive tree here, and there are no issues environmentally with its removal. Actually, the harvesters are granted licenses from the New South Wales Forestry Department to remove those trees. And so by doing proper harvesting, they can be reutilized for oil production rather than going to waste, for instance. And they are very self-seeding, prolific and self-propagating trees. So they're really no need for replanting. They grow very easily. And the distilled biomass, for instance, is used as mulch on plantations, and also for like absorbing oil spills, to name a few options. Okay, so the wood is usually harvested in New South Wales, and the distillation is actually in South Australia. Next, tea tree. Of course, tea tree, native to Australia, very favorite and popular oil. We work with a partner in New South Wales, in Port Macquarie to be exact, with a large plantation there. So the tea tree, it's a shrub, and the oil is distilled from the leaves. It really thrives in that region. So really working with a partner in that region helps us, bring in the best quality tea tree oil from Australia. The harvest is usually between May and August. And when we go and visit, it's great to see there are actually a lot of kangaroos that run wild on their plantation, and they feed on weeds. So it's very good and cheap labor. And also the distilled biomass is reused as mulch on the plantation. So a great recycling system there. And I think it's very... Hopefully, with all the COVID travel restrictions being lifted by then, I believe I'll have the chance to see quite a few of you in July this year, cross fingers, as part of the Diamond Club sourcing trip in 2021. So let's hope we will see each other in July in Port Macquarie, and so that you can see the plantations there by yourself. Another oil which is also unique to Australia is lemon myrtle. So lemon myrtle was actually an oil that was very hard to find in a pure form in the past. There wasn't much supply, and because of myrtle rust, disease that came through a cyclone a few years ago, it was very hard to get large volumes of lemon myrtle. So there was a lot of adulterated oil in the market. But now it's been a few years that we work with a couple of partners on lemon myrtle with different size plantations. There are many in New South Wales and in Queensland. One of our partners, for instance, has a permanent distillation unit, which is centered amongst different plantations. Another partner has mobile distillation units, and so would go and visit, smaller farms and when the harvesting time comes, and harvest and bring in their equipment and the mobile destination units there. So the oil actually comes from the leaves through steam distillation, and it's used in singles, once again in Australia and New Zealand markets only, but it's also in blends like cheer and elevation, for instance. And one thing about lemon myrtle you might not be aware of is that the oil is actually a byproduct of the tea industry. Lemon myrtle is mostly used in the tea industry. Eucalyptus. Of course, living in Australia means we live with eucalyptus, so it's a very familiar aroma around us. I believe that Australia is actually home to almost 700 known species of eucalyptus, which is amazing. The oil comes from the leaves through steam distillation, and it takes 2 or 4 hours to distill a batch of eucalyptus. One thing that I really love about eucalyptus, and I invite you to do that next time you're walking around, and I'm sure you'll come across an eucalyptus tree on your walks, is if you pick up a leaf from the tree and actually place it in front of the sun like this, you'll be able to see little yellow dots on those leaves. Those are actually sacs in which the oil is contained. So I invite you to do that next time you walk around. I always find it fascinating. Rosalina, I know it was Southern Rosalina was an LTO this year in Australia, but I hope to see it again soon because I really, really love this oil. You might know that actually, because it comes from the same family as tea tree, but it's got also linalool in it. It's got a little bit of this lavender back note. So some people actually call it lavender tea tree, which I find quite interesting. So it's distilled, the leaves are distilled through steam distillation to produce the oil, and it actually comes from Tasmania. It's a long-established native plant in Tasmania. And interestingly, there's actually 2 types of Rosalina. There's a northern and a southern Rosalina. The southern Rosalina from Tasmania has more of that linalool content, which brings that lavenderish aroma to it. So it's sustainably harvested through it's wild harvesting, but it's sustainable from some selected bushes and regrowth in specific locations in Tasmania. Moving on to New Zealand, Douglas fir, a very unique oil distilled for doTERRA in New Zealand. It has a wonderful story. Actually, the production of the Douglas fir oil is actually a result of a solution found to combat an environmental problem in New Zealand. Douglas fir trees were imported from the US many years ago for the timber plantation industry in New Zealand. And it turns out that those trees actually started growing much faster in New Zealand. So when they start having cones, those clear seeds from the trees actually fly away and spread all around the Queenstown area. And so you'll see, like on this photo, a lot of those little Christmas trees everywhere in New Zealand, which looks wonderful, but the problem is that then it prevents other natives from growing on the land. So we actually work with private landowners, but also the local government to harvest those trees, and we try to harvest them before they start coning themselves, and we can actually reuse them by distilling the needles and produce a wonderful essential oil. And we've actually gone another step now, and we're working on reusing the distilled biomass. We call it the Waste to Wilderness program, where we use the distilled biomass of the Douglas fir needles, and we collect food waste from supermarkets. All of this put together creates an amazing compost. And so we've been working with different communities around the distillery, whether it was school, individuals, or even with the local government, to then use this mulch created from the distilled biomass and food waste to replant native trees. So we've got a bigger project of also reusing discarded wood pellets that end up in New Zealand, which are biodegradable, and to use that compost we make and those pellets and plant native. So this is a big project and program we're working on, and I hope that when we can travel again to New Zealand all together, we'll be able to go and participate in that activity. And Manuka. I kept Manuka for the end. It's very special to me. I worked on this project for many years, and it was just amazing to see the results. It was one of the last trips to New Zealand I was able to do last year. We actually worked with a partner on the East Cape of New Zealand, the North Island, who has 30 years experience dealing with Manuka. Manuka was mostly harvested from wild crafted trees or bushes. But thanks to our partnership, we've actually been able to facilitate the development of 50-hectare plantations of Manuka on the East Cape. And this has allowed us to work with the community, with the Maori community, by setting up forestry rights agreements on land that was not necessarily used before. So it's creating income to the community, it's created jobs, and this is for the long term. And it's been wonderful to see those lyre trees growing when we visited last year. The oil is from the leaves of the bushes and comes from the steam distillation. But I think I could talk about Manuka for a very long time, but I will invite you to watch this video that we have put together during our visit last year, so that you can really grasp how wonderful this project in New Zealand is.
Most people know me as Dee. I'm a mother. I'm a yoga teacher. I'm a remedial therapist. I'm also just really passionate about people and helping them with their wellness. And so yoga was my first port of call. That's where I started. I decided to do my yoga training and then realized that I didn't know enough about the body. So I went off and did my remedial massage, and I started to discover that I could help people with their journey of recovery by using the oils as well. When I pick up an essential oil from doTERRA, the first thing that my nose tells me is that I'm smelling something super pure. It was something that I popped the lid and I was like, this is amazing. I thought I was just buying the best frankincense on the market and didn't realize that I'd be also helping my family, changing the dynamic of my wellness and my own family healthcare, and then obviously moved into the business pretty quickly and started teaching other people how they could use the oils as well, because I was blown away at just how amazing they were. But I also understand that as humans, we're searching for purity within ourselves. I see that in my yoga practice, and I see it in the work that I do. We all want to get back to that space where that purity that we were born with. And that's why I love the oils, because when I see people that are coming in emotionally covered, they can reach for an oil and that can help them to uncover that space where they can feel pure again, because so much of life sometimes contaminates us a little bit emotionally, and we sometimes don't always have the skills to move through it. And from an oil perspective, I really feel that doTERRA's purity of oils have helped not only me come back to myself time and time again, but a bit like my yoga practice, it's a cycle. Purity, we all need to go through purification. always, that's kind of why we're here. When I walked into doTERRA's first convention, I didn't know what to expect, but I was absolutely blown away. I remember being on the phone after the first day to my husband. I'm like, it's almost unbelievable. It's unbelievable what I'm feeling. It's really unbelievable. And yeah, I guess that's what I love about doTERRA. It's allowed me to be who I am and feel again. It was so heart-opening for me that hearing people's journeys, listening to the mission of doTERRA and understanding that what I was feeling when I was opening those bottles of oils was conveyed brilliantly when I smelled that. And then when I was in presence with people that were all had that same vision, that was really impactful for me. I knew that I'd found a place that I wanted to be a part of and contribute to. When I started teaching yoga, I had this vision that would be my yoga. My yoga would put me into this community, and I've established my doTERRA business to a place where I can now start to choose the things that I want to do with my time. I'm starting to streamline my business a bit better, and I'm starting to understand my processes. And because doTERRA provides me financial freedom to be able to spend half a day offering services without needing to worry about that being part of what sustains my family. I can just purely go there and help people. It's awesome. When I went to Guatemala, I realized that when doTERRA do what they do, and when I do what I do, I'm actually living my purpose. And my purpose is to impact as many people as possible in the community. Now, whether that's through massage or whether that's through doTERRA or through yoga, the impact is massive in terms of the ripple effect. And co-impact sourcing showed me that, like in real time. I saw the ripple effect and how it affected people's lives, and how me selling one bottle of oil wasn't just about me changing that one person's life, but there was this ripple effect. And I started to see that in everything that I did. Like even when I massage someone, that person who go home and feel so much better that they change their lives, and they change more people's lives just by feeling better. The same with yoga. So it absolutely, it changed my life, because I finally felt like I saw the impact that doTERRA had, but that also related back to my life. Even when we feel insignificant, when we feel like we're only massaging one person, it can't make that difference, but there is a ripple effect in everything we do. Same with when we sell the oil. As long as I can keep my energy flowing, that I'm making a huge impact if I just continue to do it without thinking that I'm insignificant. And doTERRA has shown me that through co-impact sourcing. It really, it was pretty profound for me.
Okay, first thing to say before I kick off, just in case you're looking at me thinking, gosh, this guy looks very tired. You're right, I've never been so tired in my entire life. My wife and I had our second child, as in not recently, that was a year ago. But she wakes up every single morning. We put her down at 7, she wakes up at 11, at 1, at 3, and she's up at 4:45. At 4:45, she's ready to go. Actually, now I think about it, that's not even why we're tired. We're tired because we've got a 3-year-old at home. Oh my gosh, we were told about the terrible twos. We based ourselves on the terrible twos. We actually high-fived each other on his 3rd birthday. But no one told us what happens when they turn 3. My goodness me. I don't know if there's a name for the 3s. Is it terrible twos, the psychopathic 3s or something? I have no idea. But anyway, that's why I look so tired, because I'm dealing with a psychopath at home. He's lovely, I love him, but he's just... I need to give an example so I don't sound like I'm being too harsh. What's an example? Well, we're in bed together the other night, and I couldn't get him to sleep. He's lying next to me, and he rolled over, and with a massive smile on his face, he said, "Hey, Daddy." I said, "Yes, Benji." And he said, "I don't love you, so cry." So that's what I'm dealing with at the moment. So that's why I look so tired. The other thing to say is I'm so wrapped this isn't over Zoom. I did over 300 Zoom presentations last year, and some of the stuff that happened over Zoom. I remember when I was, I'll never forget this one of the more brutal, I had the chat function open. I was speaking to a whole group of tradespeople up in, they were up in Queensland, I was down in Melbourne, and I was about 5 minutes into my presentation, and one of the guys tried to write a private message to his mate, but he accidentally had it on public, and he wrote to all of us, and he said, "Hey, Jono, he said, "Hey, Jono, who does this bloke remind you of?" I remember thinking, oh God, my lookalikes are never good. They're never good. And I tried to move the chat function so I couldn't see the answer. But his mate Jono was way too quick. And Jono wrote back and said, I'm actually still recovering from this. He said, I know who this bloke looks like. He said, this guy's a dead ringer for Steve Buscemi. Now, you may not know who Steve Buscemi is. If you don't know who Steve Buscemi is, that's Steve Buscemi. So I'm a little bit, took me a long time to recover from that. And they didn't even say like a young Steve Buscemi. He just said, yeah, everyone says he's got the same eyes, got the same teeth. Like, give me a break. Anyway, that's why I'm so happy this is actually a face-to-face. Well, not face-to-face, but not Zoom. So I'm so happy it is not a Zoom presentation. In fact, one more before we get off. Do I have time? Yeah, I'll do one more very quickly. I'll get it off Steve Buscemi. And I'll tell you about these two people in a second. And I can't wait to tell you about these two people. Two beautiful stories. The other one that happened to me on Zoom last year was about 15 minutes into my presentation. We had 400 teachers from all around Australia watching, and this lady came off mute at the worst possible. They're all on mute, and for some reason she accidentally came off mute, sitting on a couch by herself, and she went, oh my God, this guy is so boring. So I'm so happy that if you are bored, I'm not going to get that feedback from you with this format. Anyway, not here to talk about my Zoom disasters. Here are the two people that I'm so excited to tell you about today. Oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot to introduce myself properly at the start. My name's Hugh Van Kylenberg. I'm from the Resilience Project. If you don't know much about the Resilience Project, we run mental health and wellbeing programs in schools, corporate workplaces, in sporting clubs all over Australia and New Zealand. And we've been doing that for the last 10 years. Anyway, that's not important at all, trust me. I hope the content today is really important for you, because the world we live in today, well, it's very different to world what it was a bit over a year ago. And for the last 10 years, I've been travelling around Australia and New Zealand, and I've been talking about all the stuff that we can do that makes us feel happier, that improves our mental health and helps us cope better in a challenging time. And I feel like it's been important for the last 10 years, but it's never been as important as it is right now. Like, we need this stuff. The reason the Resilience Project exists and the reason I do the work I do is because the two people you can see on the screen. The boy on the left-hand side of the screen, I love telling his story. It's a beautiful story. The other story I'm going to tell you today is about, well, I don't love telling this story, the other one. It's about my little sister, Georgia. And the reason I don't love telling her story is because it's about her struggles with mental illness. So just a heads up, if this is raw to you, I will be speaking about my sister's battles of mental illness, but I'm going to do it quickly because I want today to be an uplifting session for you. I really do. The other thing I'll say is that if stories of mental ill health are raw for you, like if it's going to be tough to listen to, you are absolutely in the right place. Because what I'll be talking about at the back end of this presentation is stuff that you can do to improve your mental health, to make you stronger, make you more resilient, and to make you cope better in a challenging time. I haven't met many people who have said to me, nah, to be honest, 2020 wasn't that challenging for me. I think it's affected us all. And if it hasn't affected you, I can guarantee it's affected someone that you love. So if today's about understanding them a bit better or being there for them so you can show up for them and help, either way, I'm delighted if you're getting something for you or for the people you love. So in 2008, I was really lucky. I found myself traveling, backpacking India, which, as I say, that's not that lucky. I bought a plane ticket and that's why I was doing it, but wasn't that lucky. But I found myself in India and I was over there backpacking, playing a bit of cricket. I was a teacher back then. I was a primary school teacher, and I actually realised I was missing the classroom a lot, which really took me by surprise. But I thought I might see if I can go and find a place to go and teach. And I ended up in a village. I had no money back then, back in 2008, absolutely nothing. And I remember thinking, I heard about this village, and they said, if you come and teach conversation English here, we'll give you. The deal was you get to live with the principal. So it's free accommodation and 3 meals a day. And I thought, you beauty, that's all I need. This is going to be great. I turned up in the village, and I'll never ever forget the feeling of shock that I felt when I arrived in the village and discovered in this village there's no running water, there was no electricity. Oh, sorry, there was electricity, but they couldn't afford to have it switched on, and there were no beds. So everyone sleeps on the floor. They couldn't afford to have beds. And I'll never forget the feeling of shock I felt when I arrived in this village. And I remember thinking to myself, there is no way. There's no way I'm going to be able to stay here for the full 2 weeks. In fact, I'm ashamed to admit that I actually said to the principal whom I was living with in his little mud hut, I remember saying to him, I'm really sorry, I didn't actually mean 2 weeks, I meant 2 nights. I'll be here for 2 nights. And I could see the look of disappointment on his face as it kind of registered what I was trying to do, which is get out of this trip. Because, to be honest, I just couldn't bear sleeping on the floor for 2 weeks and walking down the river for water, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I remember my first day in the school, and it's a day I'll never forget because it's the day I met the boy you can see on the screen. His name's Stunson. And I remember after about half an hour in his presence thinking to myself, never in my life have I ever seen joy like this before. This kid is the happiest person I've ever met. I remember thinking, how extraordinary. I remember sitting there actually, I was looking out there, they didn't have windows, they had like these just holes in the mud brick wall for the school. I remember looking across the school ground, across the desert, thinking, there's nothing here. We are right in the middle of the desert. And I remember thinking, I don't think I've ever seen joy like this before. It was very confusing. First week went like that. And I remember thinking to myself, well, I'd been invited back to someone's house. Someone said, come back to our mud hut and drink tea with us, which every night is a different family. I remember sitting in this mud hut, right? And the mud hut was the whole house was about the size of like your average size bedroom. And I'm sitting there, and it wasn't like we would do tea in Australia or New Zealand, like one of mum or dad's still at work and the kids are running around. It was everyone, straight after school, mum, dad, kids, extended family, neighbours. We're all sitting in a circle. We're all sitting there drinking tea. I had no idea what they were saying. They were just big smiles and laughter, and come to think of it, they're probably saying, what on earth is Steve Buscemi doing in our mud hut? What a thrill this is. But I remember sitting there thinking to myself, this could not be more foreign right now. Like I'm sitting on a dirt floor. I don't understand what they're saying. I'm drinking tea, which to be honest wasn't the nicest tea I've ever had. But I also remember thinking it couldn't be more foreign, and yet I couldn't feel more relaxed here. Like I couldn't feel more calm, at ease, no anxiety in the world whatsoever. And I remember thinking, gosh, this is pretty amazing. And then I remember thinking 2 things. First of all, I thought, I reckon these people are onto something here. I feel like they're onto something here. I don't know what it is. My second thought, which I thought about a couple of hours later, I just thought, not only are these people onto something, I feel like potentially we're doing a lot wrong back home in countries like Australia and New Zealand. Anyway, if you want any evidence to back up the fact we're doing a bit wrong, like now in 2021, you look at the statistics, there's a lot we're doing wrong. Not to say we aren't so blessed to live in countries like Australia and New Zealand, especially with the way the world is right now with COVID. I don't even know where to start. Like the statistics are quite confronting, just as a heads up. How's this one? Australia right now, the second most medicated country in the world for anxiety disorder. Now that's really confronting when you consider how extraordinary the living conditions of this country are. We call this a lucky country, happy-go-lucky, she'll be right. This relaxed, laid-back attitude. Second most medicated country in the world for anxiety disorder. Iceland is number 1, if you're wondering. I've never been there, I don't know what's going on there. What's another statistic? Loneliness. We are, so there was a survey done at the end of 2018, and it was done worldwide, many countries around the world. Australia is one of them. And the 2 questions asked in the survey were this. Number 1, how many people do you, and you might want to think about your answer to this question right now, but number 1, how many people know you well? Number 2, in a crisis, how many people could you turn to for support? Australia ranked up there in the top 3, or should be the bottom 3, for the loneliest people in the world. We don't feel like people know us that well. We also don't feel like we've got many people we can turn to in a crisis. Anyway, so let's go back to India. So my second week in India, it went like that. I remember lying on the dirt floor at the principal's house. I was thinking, my gosh, I'm going to miss this place so much. I remember thinking the reason I'm going to miss this place is I just love these people. I'm so in love with these people in this place. And I don't know where it came from, but I started thinking about my little sister. So my plane was flying out the next morning at 10 a.m. And I remember lying on the floor thinking to myself, I was remembering the time my sister was first diagnosed with her mental illness. And I don't know where this memory came from, because up until that point in time, my way of dealing with my sister's mental illness, to be really honest, and a lot of people do this, is I think a lot of people do this, I just kind of chose not to think about it. I thought the easiest way for me to deal with the trauma of my sister is to just never think about it. And I think a lot of us do that, particularly males. We just do our best to block out anything painful from our lives. And it will always come back and get us in the end. But that was my way of dealing with it, especially as a young man in his 20s. Anyway, something about, 2 weeks in this village, I'm thinking about my sister first being diagnosed with an eating disorder, anorexia nervosa. My sister hated the way that she looked and she just stopped eating. Fast forward a couple of years, so she's 16, 17 years old. She's admitted to hospital because she dropped below crisis weight for the first time in her battle. And I'll never ever forget this. I was sitting on the hospital bed with her first day in hospital. And the doctor walked in, he looked at his watch and he said, "I'm sorry, mate, you have to leave." And I said, "I've only been here for 2 hours." He said, "Yeah, that's all you get." I said, "Are you serious?" And he said, "Yeah, you get 2 hours." He said, "But I've told your sister, if she puts on a little bit more weight before tomorrow, well, then you can stay for more than 2 hours. If she puts on more weight the day after that, well, you can stay for 3 or 4 hours a day after." He said, "You're her incentive. I need you to leave." And I said, "Right." And as I left, I remember looking over my shoulder and I said, "Oh, sorry, how much weight does my sister have to put back on so I can stay for more than 2 hours tomorrow?" And he told me her total weight, which, to be honest, I wasn't interested in. I'd switched off from it ages ago. He said to me, "When your sister gets back up to, 31 kilograms, then we'll consider letting you stay for more than 2 hours tomorrow." My sister's about this tall and she was weighing in at, less than 31 kilograms. That's when I realised how serious mental illness was. Anyway, I remember lying there on the dirt floor just reflecting on this. And I remember thinking to myself, well, with my sister's condition, fast forward a couple of years. I remember she got out of hospital. I remember thinking, good, she's better. I didn't realise that she had a long way to go. Fast forward another couple of years, she's still very sick. Fast forward another couple of years, she's still very sick. And at that same point in time, I remember I'm lying on a dirt floor in India. I'm thinking, how is this possible? The kid you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, Stunson, sleeps on the floor. There's no running water in his village. I feel like I've never, ever met anyone happier. The other person you can see on the screen grew up in Australia. Loving family, nice home, went to good enough schools. She had everything she ever needed growing up in life. But my little sister, like so many people in countries like Australia and New Zealand, she just found it really hard to be happy. I remember thinking, no, I can't leave here. I need to stay here. In fact, I need to live in this village. And I need to live here as long as it takes me to work out what is it these people do every single day that makes them so happy. Is there anything I can learn of them that I can maybe talk to my sister about? Very long story short, there are about 5 things I saw these people do every single day. 5 things that I watched. 3 things were really obvious because I stopped their day and I practiced them. They were gratitude, empathy, and mindfulness. The other 2 I've looked back on and reflected on and realised they're the 2 things that we do not do well in Australia. I think we all understand we need to be practicing gratitude, which is like the ability to pay attention to what you've got, not worry about what you don't have. I think we know that. The way we practice that incidentally is just writing down 3 things that went well for us every single night before we go to bed. Such an easy thing to do, such a powerful impact on our lives. These people in this village, they were so unbelievably grateful. The second one is empathy, which is the ability to feel what someone else feels. We've got to get better at that. We have to get better at that. Because the research says the more empathetic you are, the more likely you are to act in a kind way. The neuroscience behind kindness is life-changing. It says every single time you do something nice to someone else, your brain releases this hormone called oxytocin, makes you feel happy. I'm talking about small things. Shouting someone a coffee, letting someone into traffic, holding the door open to someone, that kind of stuff. We do those things, brain releases oxytocin, makes us feel emotions like joy, love, happiness, all that kind of stuff. And the third one, mindfulness. Gosh, it's everywhere. Everyone's talking about mindfulness at the moment. As far as I'm concerned, it's pretty simple. It's the ability to be wherever you are. Just be wherever you are. The research says, or the numbers say, we actually spend 49% of our day thinking about the future and 34% of our day thinking about the past. That gives us 15%. 15%. That's not 15, that's 5. You know what I'm saying? 15% of our time thinking about what's happening as it's happening. And that's really sad when you consider that 100% of our life is the present moment. Yet we're only showing up 15% of the time. We're not bad people. Don't get me wrong. It's just, you know what it feels like. You're sitting around the dinner table with your family, your loved ones, or your partner, your housemate, whatever it is. And you realise after 5 minutes you haven't listened to a word anyone said because you're too busy thinking about a meeting you've got the next day or an issue that took place during the day. We've got to get the only thing you ever have control over in your life. We have no control over the past. We're spending a third of our day worrying about it. That's one of the reasons we're so anxious. We have little control over the future. We're spending half our time thinking about it. That's very anxiety provoking. The only thing you ever have control over in your life is what is happening right now, in this very moment. So we've got to give it more than 15% of our attention and focus. That's one of the reasons we're so anxious as a society at the moment. Too busy worrying about stuff we can't control, like the future or the past. Anyway, gratitude, empathy, mindfulness. They're the three things I saw these people practice every day. But it's not what I'm here to talk about today for a couple of reasons. Looking back with the absolute, I suppose, the privilege of hindsight, looking back on these people 10 years later, there are two things I've realised they do unbelievably well. Well, there's one thing they do better than anyone I've ever seen. That is that they are so authentically connected to each other. They have the strongest social and emotional bonds. And we don't do that as well these days. I pretty much blame social media and reality TV for that, but that's a whole different topic. I don't have time for that today. Before we get into authentic connection, I want you to have a look at this question. And before I give you the answer that I'm seeing so commonly, I'd just like you to consider this for a minute before we get into how authentic connection works, because I think it's so closely linked to COVID. If in 2020, I mean, you just consider, I mean, from an Australian point of view, you know, half the country burns for the first couple of months. Bushfires, the worst bushfires we have ever seen by so far. They roll into floods pretty quickly after that in really similar parts of the country. And then we roll into a global pandemic, which changes our lives forever. If in 2020, Mother Nature was trying to tell us something, what do you think she's trying to say? Just have a think about that now before I reveal the really common answers I'm getting from this question. I've been asking this question for a long time now, for at least 6 months, and there are two things that stand out to me. Just have a think, what's Mother Nature trying to tell us? I mean, there's the obvious stuff, right? Like, I think it deserves a bit more respect than this. Like, you've got to look after me, you know, that kind of stuff. But there are two other things that really stand out to me. Here's the first one. I don't know about you, but I feel like COVID was just screaming, Mother Nature was screaming, you've got to slow down. Like, you think back to the way we're living our lives before COVID, and I can kind of feel things picking up again, which I can feel that it's kind of going back to normal, which is good in a way, but gosh, I hope we learned the lessons that Mother Nature taught us in 2020. We were just living our lives at this ridiculous pace. Like, we were just slamming so much into every single day. I'll go here for this hour, then this hour, then this hour. So the ridiculous stuff we're doing. Like, we all get up at the same time in the morning, and we all jump in the car pretty much at the same time. We're getting peak hour traffic. We get angry about it every day. Like, it's a surprise. Like, it shouldn't be a surprise. It's always there. And then COVID hits, and people don't have to go to the office every single day. We can work from home. We don't have to be at work at 9 o'clock. Like, everyone doesn't have to start at 9 o'clock. I just feel like we're running our lives at this ridiculous pace. And I feel like Mother Nature was saying, just for... I was about to swear then. I don't know if I can swear. Slow down is the first one. And the second one is the one I hear over and over again. It's this. It's connect. When I say connect, it is connect with the things that matter and the people that matter. I feel like we'd really become disconnected from the things that are so genuinely good for us and so authentically good for us. The people that we're meant to be connected to. We weren't as connected as we were. I'll give you a really good example from my life, okay? And I apologise if this is raw for anyone, but I think if it is raw for you, I think you'll understand it's not raw in a bad way. This is a good type of raw, if there's such thing. Before COVID hit, I remember, so my dad, who I love dearly, he's my hero, and I just love him so much, with my mum, my hero. My dad has this habit of telling very long stories. And as I say that, I just think, gosh, I wonder where I got it from. Anyway, my dad tells very long stories. And majority of stories, in fact, all of the stories I've heard at least 100 times before. And before COVID struck, like a month before COVID, I remember Dad they live an hour and a half away, my mum and Dad. And they were over and they were looking after the kids so I could go to work, so my wife Penny could study, which is such a lovely thing of them to do. And I know they love it, but we're very blessed to have that situation. And if you'd said to me that moment, if you had said to me in that moment, are you grateful for your mum and dad? I'd say, of course I am. What a ridiculous question. I look back on it and realise I wasn't as grateful as I should have been. Because I remember I was trying to get the kids ready for dinner and it was just mayhem. And Dad said, I was just thinking about this story. And he started telling me a story. I've heard it quite a few times before. And I said, Dad, I've heard that before. And I kind of turned my back on him and I kept doing whatever I was doing. And I remember feeling a little bit bad about that, but also thinking, I'm so busy, I don't have time to hear this story for the 100th time, whatever it is. Fast forward 6 months. I hadn't seen my mum and dad for 6 months. I'd only met their granddaughter a handful of times. It was deep into Melbourne's. I read the other day that Melbourne has had the longest and harshest lockdown anywhere in the world. And we were in the absolute depths of it. It was cold, it was dark, it was wet, it was right in the middle of winter. And I remember thinking to myself, sitting there, and my wife and I, to be honest, we were struggling a bit with the whole lockdown situation with 2 very young kids. And I remember very clearly thinking to myself, I would do anything to be able to sit here and listen to one of Dad's stories right now. I miss my parents so much. I can't explain to my young kids, why their grandparents can't visit. I remember thinking, gosh, I'd do anything to have Dad here right now telling me one of his stories. Later that night, I had another realisation. I remember thinking to myself, I am so grateful I've had that realisation now while my dad's still alive and it's not too late to hear his stories. 2 weeks ago, yesterday, Dad was over yesterday looking after the kids. Same scenario took place. I was getting the kids ready for dinner and Dad started telling one of his stories that I've heard many times before. And I sat there and I said, I'd love to hear that story. And I was fully engaged in everything he said and I loved it. I remember sitting there thinking, how lucky am I to be sitting here listening to my dad tell me this story, which I have heard a few times before. But I think COVID has revealed we're taking way too many things for granted, especially the connections that we are so lucky to have. So our job now, and I know with what you do, a lot of what your role is about connection. And you're probably really good at this. So you're probably saying, I don't need this advice. This is what I do for a living. I just want to talk about a couple of things that the research is screaming at us we need to do better as far as connection. Here are the 3 things that drive connection. And by the way, why is connection important? Obviously, for your job, it's important, but the research is now saying one of the leading factors towards good mental health and happiness and well-being and the ability to cope during a crisis and the ability to cope during a challenging time in your life is connection, authentic and deep connection. It doesn't have to be with hundreds of people, but as long as you've got a few people that you feel connected to, your chances of coping in a challenging time are far greater. Here are the 3 things that the research is screaming at us if we want to be more connected to better mental health. Here are the 3 things we've got to do better. And again, and I have the lovely acronym VIP, so you'll be able to remember them. Just think VIP, okay? Vulnerability. So embracing vulnerability, embracing your imperfections, and living with passion. They're the 3 things the research is saying you've got to start doing if you want to be better connected. I'm about to give you 2 examples of what vulnerability looks like. Now, if you're outside of Australia, you probably won't know who these people are. In fact, if you don't follow Aussie rules football, you won't know who these people are. It doesn't matter who they are. They are 2 great examples of people displaying or being vulnerable and it leading to an authentic and deep connection. Here are the 2 people. On the left-hand side of the screen, we have the captain of the Richmond Football Club who's won 3 out of the last 4 premierships, Trent Cotchin. And on the other side of the screen, we have a guy called Charlie Dixon who plays for the Port Adelaide Football Club. We'll start with Charlie's story very, very quickly for you. I'm very lucky I get to work a lot of these sides and I've done a lot of work with Charlie at Port Adelaide Football Club. And I'll never forget this. Charlie Dixon said to me, can I chat to you? And we sat down over a coffee. He's one of the biggest, scariest men I've ever seen in my entire life. It's a bit hard not to be scared when you're just looking at him. And he said to me, I'm really battling. And he told me a story. He told me the story about his mental health, how it wasn't in the best shape, issues he was having on and off the ground. And he was very emotional, lots of tears as he's telling me. I remember I said to him, "Oh, so I'm guessing you've told your teammates this and they're aware of this?" And he said, "No, I haven't." And I said, "How come?" And he said, I'm meant to be the tough, strong, like scary person. They'll think it's really weak if I'm struggling." And I said, "If one of your teammates come up to you and said, 'I'm struggling, I'm in a bad place,' would you think that's weak?" And he said, "No, I think it was actually unbelievably courageous." And I said, "Why is it different for you then?" And he said, "Yeah, I get the point you're making." I said, "We need to find a way that you can reach out and talk to people about what you're going through. Make yourself truly vulnerable. Let him hear your story. Let him hear what you're struggling with." And it took a while. It's not as easy as just going, "Right, I'll start telling everyone what I'm struggling with." But about 6 months later, he spoke to the entire group, the whole club, and said, "This is what I'm struggling with. I'm not in a good place because of this, because of this, because of this." And I don't have permission to go into all the details, but he told everyone what he was going through and said, "I've been going through this for the last year. Sorry, I've been hiding it from you." I have never seen a reaction like it. It was one of the most intense things I've ever seen. He was hugged by literally the 44 men in the room. Every single one of them hugged him. A majority of them said, "I love you." And so many of them followed up over the next day, the next week, the next month saying, "Hey, remember, I'm here for you. Anything I can do, I'm here for you." Charlie made himself extremely vulnerable. He told people what he was battling with, and what he got was this incredible love, support, backing, all that kind of stuff. He said it's the most powerful thing he's ever done for his mental health was let people know that he was struggling. Now, I'm not saying to you now, go and find a room full of 44 men and tell them if you're struggling. For many of us, it could just be one person we know that we feel like we could share our story with. Maybe it's 2 people. You'll know who those people are. You'll know the people you can say, "Look, this is what I'm battling with." The problem is when we are struggling with something and we're not willing to make ourselves vulnerable, we keep it to ourselves, the story grows and grows in our mind. It turns into shame. When you hang on to shame, it's incredibly dangerous. Shame cannot survive empathy, right? Charlie had incredible shame in his head about, "I shouldn't be feeling this way. I get paid lots of money to play football. I shouldn't be feeling so down." So he felt shame and he got worse and worse. The second he told people what he was going through, he had empathy, and shame cannot survive empathy. Now, vulnerability doesn't mean getting up and just telling everyone what you're battling with. There's so many different ways to be vulnerable. If you're into this topic and you find this interesting, you need to look up Brené Brown on YouTube. Not now, keep watching me. After that, go and look up Brené Brown. And she talks about this. She gives examples of vulnerability is taking an emotional risk. It's putting yourself way outside your comfort zone emotionally. The reason we do that is because that is where our greatest growth takes place. As human beings, you look back on the times you've been vulnerable, where you've been struggling with something, that is when your greatest growth has taken place as a human being. It could be after a very good friend of mine, someone we live close to, has had 3 miscarriages in a row. She decided to try again to get pregnant. That's vulnerable. Another friend of mine is going to his boss for feedback. Somebody he's never had a proper conversation with before. That's vulnerable. Taking an emotional risk, because when we fail or we stuff up or outside our comfort zone, that is where growth takes place. And here's another reason why. So many of us are struggling. I mean, I felt myself during COVID, 2020, during the thick of it, I know we're not out of it yet, I felt enormous pressure to be okay, because I'm the guy that travels around Australia and says, "This is what you should do to feel happy. This is stuff you do to be all right." So I was kind of pretending I was okay. When deep into the lockdown, I wasn't. I was really battling with so many things. As a family, it was particularly hard for us, particularly hard. The second that I actually said publicly, "No, I'm not coping well," in fact, it wasn't publicly, it was to the Port Adelaide Football Club. I was running a session where I wanted them to be vulnerable, and I opened up and said, "Gosh, I'm really battling." I was quite teary while I was doing it. I couldn't get to Adelaide, it was over Zoom. I missed him very much, and I was telling him over Zoom how much I was battling. And I was very teary. And in the car on the way home, I put the radio on, and a song came on. The song's by a band that I've never known how to pronounce. I should have done research before this presentation. It's either Frou Frou or Frau Frau. I have no idea. It doesn't matter. The lyrics of the song are, let go, just jump in, there's beauty in the breakdown. And there is beauty in the breakdown, and here's why. When you're at a low point in your life, and when you can see that you're at a low point, there is this unbelievable feeling of humility that comes with that. It's a humility that you actually stop pretending you're okay, you admit that you're not okay, and you start looking around for the things that you can be doing to rebuild yourself. People do this all the time, losing a loved one. You go through this low point, this breakdown. Maybe it's a relationship breakdown. You struggle for a while. There's a point where you go, I'm at my lowest. What am I going to do to build myself back up? That's where you go through your greatest growth. So we need to be better as a society of being vulnerable. I mean, these people in India, they had the closest relationships. Being vulnerable wasn't hard. We don't know much about our neighbours. We've built up these big walls, metaphorically and physically. We don't know what's going on over our neighbour's fence. These people in this village of India are so connected to each other. We walk past each other on the street, we say g'day. It is so rude to walk past someone and just say hello in this village I was living in. You walk past someone, it takes a long time to get anywhere. You walk past someone, you stop and you talk. And you are locked in for 10 or 15 minutes. Now, even me, I couldn't speak their language, they couldn't speak my language. We'd look at each other and nod very awkwardly for quite a long time. And the word for hello was July. Well, it probably still is July. The word for hello is July, and you do this with one hand. I'd literally just look at him and go, July, 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 like 5 minutes in a row. But the point was, it was about connection. The way we connect is by making ourselves vulnerable. Here's the other thing we need to do. Here's the second thing. And the reason Trent is up there, Trent Cotchin, the captain of Richmond Football Club, he has modelled this in Australia. If you're outside Australia, you may not know this. And again, if you don't follow footy, you may not know this. But Trent has modelled this better than anyone. At the end of the 2016 season, Trent got up in front of the group. They hadn't played finals a long time. He was captain, and he said to them, I'm not sure I'm the best person to be your captain. He said, I'm trying to pretend that I'm this courageous, outgoing leader that makes really motivational speeches all the time. But he said, that's not me. I'm trying to be something I'm not. I'm imperfect. I'm full of struggle. I'm full of challenges. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at that. But I do feel like I'm worthy of your love and belonging to this place. I just don't know. I'm so full of struggle. The second he admitted his shortcomings and his shortfalls, he embraced his imperfections as a human being, things became a lot easier for him. And again, it's linked to vulnerability very closely. As human beings, we are going to make so many mistakes. We all stuff up all the time. Why? Because we're human, and humans are imperfect, and we are full of imperfections. The way the world is right now, though, we are trying so hard to cover up our imperfections, especially with social media. Social media has blown this out. And I could be even more specific. Facebook and Instagram have blown this. They're sending us this message, we have to be perfect in order to be loved. We all have this feeling deep inside that we're not enough. We're not good looking enough. We're not smart enough. We're not successful enough. We're not earning enough money. When we are worthy of love and belonging as we are. We don't need to be earning a certain amount. We don't need to look a certain way. But we spend all our time on bloody social media where everyone else looks like their life is absolutely perfect. Everyone else curates this perfect version of their life. And we think, I don't look that good. I don't have that many followers. I'm not that successful. My kids don't eat that healthy salad. My kids aren't that well behaved. And we never come up well against our competition. It's not our competition, they're our friends. But the way it's set up on social media, it is our competition. We feel deeply inadequate. We need to let go of that feeling we need to be perfect in order to be loved and accept ourselves for who we are and accept that we are full of struggle, we're full of imperfections. When you think back to the things when you catch up with friends that you've had for a long time, like friends you've had since school or childhood or even your family, catch up with your family, have a think about what you bonded over. I mean, my family, with my mum and dad and my brother and sister, we don't sit around and talk about how incredible my brother's marks were at school or how my sister was the lead in every single musical when she was growing up or she was such a good runner. We don't bond about that. It's our stuff-ups. It's our imperfections. It's our little idiosyncrasies. They're the things we kind of talk about. They're the things that's what connects us as human beings, celebrating our imperfections. I'll give you a big one we laughed at in my family. Here's a picture of my brother Josh. I remember I put this photo. I guess this topic, if you want to know what this is coming up now, this is an example of my imperfections. My little brother Josh, I was doing a talk in where I was in Perth at a girls' school on International Women's Day. 500 girls in the auditorium, year 10, 11 and 12. One of the year 12 girls put her hand up and I said, hey, can we do questions at the end? She said, not a question, it's a statement. And I said, okay, go for it. And she said, she was looking at the photo on the screen. She said, So your brother is heaps better looking than you are. And I said, thanks for that. I'm very aware of that. But thank you so much for pointing out in front of 499 other people. 2 weeks later, I was at Mum and Dad's house. I told Mum and Dad that story, and I couldn't stop laughing. And my mum said, I'm so sorry, darling. And I said, what is it? She said, it's always been that way. And I said, what are you talking about? You're meant to fill me with, you're meant to say the opposite. She said, no, it's just that I've been looking through your photo albums recently. She said, you've had a baby. Josh has got married. I'm very nostalgic. She said, your brother has always been so beautiful. I'm sorry. I said, right. She ran down the hallway. She came back with photo albums. And she said, have a look. She said, just have a look at your brother when he was a baby. And I said, right, okay, fair enough. I guess he is quite beautiful. And she said, and here's you as a baby. And I remember, honestly, my family doesn't laugh like that in so long. And I just had this really strong feeling of I just felt a really deep connection to my family in that moment as we laughed about how hideous I was as a child. Anyway, Mum said, oh, what about your brother when he was 6? And I said, what about him? And she said, I think that was his most beautiful stage. I said, was it really? She said, just have a look at him. And she said, have a look at your brother. I said, he is quite cute. I agree. She said, anyway, here's you at the same age. Anyway, the point of it is not how much I struggled as a kid. I remember saying, Mum, just look at our hair for a minute. Just have a look at our hair. You weren't even trying with me. What is that? Anyway, I cannot tell you the joy that brought my family. I didn't care. It was when we embrace our perfections and we let go of the feeling that we have to look a certain way, we have to be a certain way in order to be loved, life becomes a lot easier for us. We've got to let go of the feeling that we have to be perfect because we don't. Perfection does not exist. The more we're chasing perfection, the more we're going to struggle to be happy. Okay, the third thing we need to be doing in order to connect authentically is to live with passion. And by living with passion, that is such a broad statement, and I'm aware of that. But these people in India, they taught me this. They were such a passionate community. And I think the way we live our lives, stuck on our phones, so busy doing stuff, we've kind of lost track of the things that we are passionate about. It comes back a little bit to gratitude I was talking about before. There are 2 ways. I really love the practical side of how you do this. So the practical side of living passionately, there are 2 things you can do. The first one is this. Good luck reading that name, my gosh, or pronouncing it. Identifying your flow. Now, if you want to read more about flow, this guy's name, as far as I'm aware, is pronounced Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. So, his first name is also part of his surname, which is, I've always found weird. It'd be like if I was Hugh Van Kylen Hugh. But anyway, let's do that. That bit will probably get cut out. But work out what your flow is. Now, what's flow? Flow is the activity. Have a think about this. Flow is the activity that you love doing. So it's often something you're quite naturally gifted at. It's often something that you've loved doing your entire life. But for many of us, the older we get, the more we kind of think, I don't have time for that. It's the activity that when you're doing it, time completely stands still. And if someone stopped you during this activity and said, how long have you been doing this for? You would probably say, I got no idea. And someone might say, it's been an hour. You think, gosh, it feels like 5 minutes. Or maybe it's the kind of activity where when you're doing it, if someone says, what are you thinking about? Stops you and says, what are you thinking about right now? You would say, I'm actually not thinking. This is just happening. That's called flow state. And Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, or however you want to pronounce it, he's a psychologist who's done the research on this. And he has said the more time we spend in flow in life, the happier we are, the better our mental health is. Now, it could be something simple like gardening. Okay? It could be something like playing music. It could be sport. It could be running. I think there are certain people you can find flow with. When you're with that person, time just flies. But as I said before, we're so, for me, it's running. I feel like the time I spend running, time just flies. And if someone stopped me during it, I'd say, I'm not even thinking, this is just happening, I'm just running. I don't know. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi actually argues that this is the best form of mindfulness we could possibly have. Yet so many of us, when we grow up, if it's tennis, we say, I don't have time to play tennis because I've got to get the kids to school, then I've got to get them ready for this. Schedule time for flow. Make sure in your week, in your calendar, you're putting in whatever their activity is. This is often quite popular with people who love playing golf and say, I told you to play golf all the time. You don't make it a selfish thing, but just schedule time throughout the week. where you're doing that thing that you love. The second way to try and engage on the topic of passion is identifying what your purpose is in life. So many of us float through life without thinking about why we're actually here. And the second you work out why you're on the earth, life becomes a lot easier. So this is what, for me, purpose, I've got a beautiful example. A friend of mine who I do my podcast with, our podcast is called The Imperfects, named around the whole topic how we've got to embrace our imperfections a bit more, is with a friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine called Ryan Shelton. Now, some of you may have heard of Ryan Shelton before. He's a comedian in Australia. He does all Hamish and Andy's stuff with them. He creates all their content with them. He grew up with Hamish Blake, and they met at school, and they said together, let's do TV together, let's do radio together, let's do stuff together, let's create content together. That's Ryan Shelton. Now, I met Ryan in a cafe back in 2015. I saw him sitting there, and I got very nervous because he's probably like my hero. I thought, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Ryan Shelton sitting there, and very awkwardly and very strangely, I went and sat right next to him, like way too close, pretending there's nowhere else to sit, but it was just me and him. I remember him kind of going, that's very close. Anyway, I pretended I didn't know who he was, and then a few minutes in, I went, oh gosh, very big fan of what you do. Anyway, I'll let you do your work. And I didn't sort of really say much more after that. He was so nice. He said, oh, what do you do? I told him what I did. And after that, we didn't really have much to do with each other. We followed each other on social media, and that was it. 4 years later, I was sitting at home, and I get a message through Instagram, and it said, hi, mate, can we catch up? Is that all right? And I thought, it's definitely okay. That's so exciting. But I thought, how weird after 4 years. We sat down, and he told me how he was struggling a bit. He told me about all the things he was struggling with. And what stood out to me was, well, there's a couple of things going on for Ryan. That's Ryan Shelton there with his best mate, Hamish Blake. I think most people know Hamish Blake, one of the more well-known Australians, maybe of all time. One of the most talented Australians of all time. What Ryan expressed to me was a couple of things. He said, my aim in life has always been to have my own show. Not only to have my own show, but to have it be the best show in Australia. And he said, for many years, I've been saying to myself, if I get my own show and it is the best show in Australia, well, then I'll feel happy. He said, it's been quite hard watching my best mate, by the way, Hamish Blake, all of a sudden be the funniest man in Australia and have the best show in Australia, that kind of stuff. But he said, I realised after a while, if I did get my own show and I did become voted the funniest man in Australia, I was just sitting there having dinner one night, and he said, I realised I wouldn't actually necessarily, that wouldn't make me happy, because then I think now I need to have the best show in the world. And he said, it's really stressing me out that I don't quite. And I said, it sounds like you haven't got your purpose sorted. And I sent him to catch up with a friend of mine, Ben Crow, this amazing guy who helps people discover their purpose. Ryan realised in that moment that his purpose was to be the funniest man in Australia. And if he was voted that, it still wouldn't make him happy. When he spoke to Ben Crow, Ben spoke to him about identifying with a purpose, combining the things that really... And now if you're thinking, I don't know what my purpose is, here's some really nice questions to answer. Ben said to Ryan, what lights you up? What really lights you up? What are you really passionate about? What are you really good at? Let's find a combination of those things. After a few days' work, Ryan articulated his purpose. Ryan's purpose was to spread joy using humour and creativity. The second his purpose became about helping other people, making other people's lives better with his talent, everything changed. All of a sudden, he loved creating content again. He loved working on shows. He loved writing scripts again, because he wasn't trying to be the best. He was just trying to help make other people's lives better. And here's the other thing. He'd become quite jealous of his best mate, Hamish. And he speaks about this a lot in our podcast. So if you want to hear more about this story, he speaks about it much better than I do. It's called The Imperfects. You can find us there. The second that it became about making other people's lives better and not being the best, he stopped being jealous of his best mate, Hamish. He started to create content again. So much content. And he is so much happier now that he's creating stuff, and he's not worried about if it's the best thing ever. It's just, as long as he's getting up every day and he's got the ability to help people to experience joy through his creativity and his humour, that's what he lives for. And here's the other thing. His relationship with his best mate Hamish has never been better, according to them, because he's no longer jealous of Hamish's success. He can now enjoy Hamish's success. because Hamish's success doesn't mean that he can't be the funniest person in Australia at all. It just means that he's got the ability now to do things to make other people happy, which is all Hamish is doing in the first place anyway. Now, I said before how you can identify a purpose. Have a think about these three things. What lights you up? What are you really passionate about? And what's something you're really good at? For me, I didn't articulate this ever. I kind of stumbled upon it. I go back and can kind of join the dots, I guess, but I'm so passionate about mental health. What lights me up is seeing other people learn that there are things they can do to feel happier. And I like to think what I'm good at, and you might disagree after this last hour, is speaking in public. But those three things together have helped me, I suppose, find what I do in life. Now, you might be thinking, gosh, my job, it doesn't, you might be showing someone thinking, I'm an accountant, and like, that's what I'm really good at. How do I bring purpose into that? Not everyone has to have a purpose. For me, if you identify with something you are passionate with and you check in every single day, I mean, my purpose was to help people to feel happier. That was it. And I have to say, at the end of last year, I was exhausted from it. I was thinking, I don't like my purpose at the moment. It's not working for me. I need to focus on me and my family. And so what I did was I made sure I checked in with my passion every day. My passion is running. So passionate about running. I can't run every day because my body will fall to pieces because I'm too old. But on the days I don't run, I'm like watching YouTube videos and running. I'm like making sure my diet's good so I can run the next day. I'm getting good sleep. Well, I'm trying to get good sleep so I can run the next day. I'm talking to people about running. Check in with your passion daily. That helps you connect, by the way. Coming back to authentic connection. That helps you enormously connect with people that are good for you when you align your passions together. The research says these three things, displaying vulnerability, embracing your imperfections, and living passionately, the research says these three things connect you authentically to human beings, and that's what the world is missing right now. We were put on the earth to connect. We are hardwired for connection. We always have been, and we always will be. This global pandemic has disconnected us physically, but I think emotionally it has really reiterated how important it is for us to be close to the people that we love, to connect with them. I've gone on for way too long. I'm going to leave you alone. It's been an absolute privilege to chat to you all today. I hope you enjoyed the last hour, and good luck with your authentic connections throughout the year.
Hello, my friends from Australia and New Zealand. So excited to have this opportunity to be with you. Wish I could be there in person and give all of you a hug, so we're just going to do virtual hugs, lots of virtual hugs, and hopefully someday soon those hugs will be real in person. And just super excited to share this information with you. My name is Justin Harrison. My wife and I were the very first wellness advocates with doTERRA 13 years ago now. In fact, we're coming up on our 13-year-old birthday on April 25th. Of doTERRA being 13 years old, and it's been the most incredible journey. And when we look back over everything that's happened in 13 years, everything we do can be summed up into three simple things. We use our products because we love them, right? We share them with others because we have to, because we know it's going to change their lives. And then we teach others the same thing, right? That same program of use, share, teach, and then repeat. Use, share, teach, and repeat. That's that cycle that you see there with the arrows and going around. So that basically sums up everything we do in doTERRA, guys. So thanks for being here. I'm glad I could be with you, and enjoy the rest of the seminar. Oh, wait, there's more. You couldn't think that was all of it, right? Actually, that does sum it all up into one simple statement, but I have some other goodness to share with you that I'm super excited about. First, want to just mention, many of you are focused on being a leader, being a builder, finding a leader. So the question I want to pose to you is, what's the difference between a builder and a leader? Because there is a difference. Okay, there really, really is. A builder can go out and sell product, share product, enroll people, but a leader has to motivate, has to inspire, has to move teams forward, right? So the difference is that leaders duplicate. Leaders duplicate. And what is duplication? Sometimes in our doTERRA journey, in our doTERRA business, we feel a little bit like this. And I'm sure that you can all relate to the spinning plates, right? We're just we're working over here, we're working here, we're working here, and we got to run back here and repeat. And we're just moving like crazy to keep all those plates spinning so that none of them fall down and break, right? And sometimes we feel like that in our business, and that can be okay for a time while you're getting up and getting moving. But this is not long-term success, and it's not sustainable long-term either. We really have to look for what's called duplication. Duplication is the magic, and duplication is real, guys. Duplication is essential for success. And to have duplication, we got to have a system that creates a pathway. Okay? It is our sacred responsibility as a leader to not do anything for our team members they're capable of doing themselves, but to help them know how and to inspire and motivate and encourage them to move forward to develop their own team. You don't grow your group. Okay, you grow your people and they grow your group. One of the greatest things, guys, is that people, the realization, one of the biggest realizations that I had was learning that people don't duplicate. Systems duplicate, right? Systems duplicate. And so we're going to touch on that a little bit more, and I'm going to focus on 2 words for you during this discussion that I feel are super important. Sometimes when we're new, especially when we're new, but even later on in your journey, you might be, how should I say this? You might be presented with other options, right? Or other companies or other opportunities. And doTERRA has become the gold standard worldwide for essential oil quality, purity, and the fact that they work, right? That they do what we say they're going to do. Sometimes people will hit us up, even me, and be like, hey, I got something better. And this, we have this old adage here in America, and I don't know if this works in Australia and New Zealand, but people will say, well, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, meaning look over here. Look what's happening with this company or this product, and it's amazing, and you should come and do this. Well, it could be that sometimes the grass looks greener on the other side of the fence because it's fake, right? It's fake. It actually looks more like this, okay? It's not real. So just be a little bit cautious if you're presented with the latest shiny penny, the latest opportunity, the latest new deal that's out there, and really remember that the grass is generally not greener on the other side of the fence because it's looking like this, and it's just a story that's being painted. Instead, look at what has been tried and true and proven and is creating tremendous success stories, both with the product and with the business all over the world every single day, even after 13 years. Okay, the 2 words that I want to focus on for the next couple minutes. The first one is immersion. Okay, immersion. When you're new to something, one of the secrets is to immerse yourself in that environment. Training with the people who are doing that same activity, right? Getting yourself deeply into all of that, jumping right into the pool, so to speak, right? Just submerging yourself, getting into all of that information. And in doTERRA, we have a lot, okay? There's a lot available now. It means listening, it means reading, it means associating, getting around those people. And you look at all of the great content that is available now to help us in our learning journey. And we want to immerse ourselves in that. And the latest thing is the new business building guide. We want to invite you to dive into this and really discover why it's so amazing. This has been a labor of love by a lot of people who my heart goes out to, because it really has been tremendous amount of time and effort and sweat and tears and laughter and meetings galore to put every aspect of how doTERRA works into one place, right? Into how to do our business. Now, there's a lot here. My encouragement to you is that you take this, that you go through it, that you identify the areas that you want to focus on to implement in your business. Don't try and do it all right away. It'll be too overwhelming. Just identify a few areas that you're going to implement and start there, and then add in throughout time. We also have this available online as an online certification course that comes with your doTERRA membership. And so definitely encourage looking at that. Now, the reason that I'm so passionate about this is because this next thing I want to share with you is a learning curve. And it's the learning curve that all of us grew up seeing. Okay, you probably saw this in school. If you went to the internet right now and did an internet search for a learning curve, you're going to see something like this, something that starts out slow and low on the scale, right? So as time is moving forward, You're going to progress very, very slowly in your learning, and then you kind of hit this upward momentum. And then fast forward in the far future, you hit this mastery phase, like where I guess you just don't learn anymore or something. I don't know. And you kind of just plateau, right? This is the commonly accepted understanding of a learning curve that I think we all grew up with, right? And I want to turn this on its head and introduce to you a different way, a different concept of that S curve, and kind of shake it up and move out of that old way of thinking into a new way of thinking. Because I think in our business, there becomes this aha moment when people are first getting started. Okay. And I actually think it looks more like this. Okay. As people are getting started, you're new, you're hungry, you're absorbing, you want to learn more, you're bringing it all in, and your learning curve actually kind of takes off like that hockey stick, right? It shoots up really, really fast because you're curious, you're open, you're a student, you're bringing it in, and you're learning, right? And then what happens at some point in the future to some of us, and I've seen this happen, I've experienced this happen in my life, to me personally, is we hit this pivot point, if you will. We hit this pivot point, and we now start to go down the slide of effectiveness. We become less effective, even though we're becoming more knowledgeable and we're becoming a bigger expert. The problem that's happening now, and this is really, really key, is that the information we're bringing in and the learning that we're taking in is no longer helping us grow and be open. It's just confirming our already held beliefs. Okay, and we're actually becoming more closed, and we're using that information to just make us more of an expert. Well, my friends, if you become too much of an expert, it's so interesting to me that your effectiveness over time actually goes down. So how we avoid this issue, and I've experienced this personally, right, is that we never ride that roller coaster. Okay, we never ride over that pivot hump, and we stay moving forward on a learning curve indefinitely, because this is a journey that doesn't end. We will always be learning. I've been using essential oils for 25 years, even way before doTERRA. I still learn new things all the time. I still learn new things about our business all the time. And if we move forward with our focus on learning and being open, then the effectiveness curve can just keep going upward. Right? It can just keep going upward, and we don't ever have to reach a point where it turns downward. Okay, so immersion. Immersion is word number one. We're going to immerse ourselves. We're going to stay open. We're going to stay learning. We're going to remain curious. We're going to stay new. All right. The second word is exertion. Exertion means that it's going to take work. Okay, it's going to take effort. This is no surprise to you. Everything wonderful is going to require massive effort, and I think we all know that, right? This chart that I want to show you is conceptual. This is from my friend Chris Brady, and it's based on observation that he has observed, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. And what happens is this: if you look at the chart, on the bottom you have effort. Okay, the amount of effort that you're putting in, and on the side you have results, the amount of results that you're achieving. And at about the 85% effort level, so you're putting in about 85% of your effort, you're getting a 1x return, whatever that is for you. Okay, 1x return, and you might call that mediocrity. And when we push from that 85% to 95%, now you might call that good, because you've now doubled the results. Okay, do you see that on the chart? You've doubled the results when we go from that 85 to 95. The magic, however, is then when we push on to that 100%. If you could push even harder, and it's hard, guys. That last 5% going from 95 to 100, it's hard. Okay, it's hard physically, it's hard emotionally, it's hard energetically. But look at the jump in your results. You jump from the 2x to the 10x in that last 5% effort. This is where the magic is. This is where few people are willing to go. This is where few people are willing to put in all of the effort, right? So that is the zone of greatness. So this is exertion, okay? By exerting ourselves all the way towards 100%, we achieve our dreams. We achieve the results that we're looking for. Now, one great thing about exertion, sometimes we get focused on strengths. In doTERRA, we love talking about strengths, and I love it. I love it. And we focus on our talents, or we talk about our talents. And talents are great. We all have different talents and abilities and efforts. What matters is your effort. Okay, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work. Okay, I don't know if you've ever met very talented people that had no work ethic. Maybe you have. Okay, very talented people that did not apply themselves and didn't put in the effort. On the reverse side, you may have met people, or you may be the person that doesn't have as much talent but has put in all the effort, and you still attain the results. So effort is everything. Okay, consistent effort over time. So now if we go back to the slide here, the diagram that we were just talking about, where on here would you think is a comfort zone? Because we talk about comfort zones and the danger of being in comfort zones and how we want to stay out of comfort zones. Looking at our graph here that we've established, where would you determine that there is a comfort zone? Okay, let me just show it to you. It's right here in that expert phase. When you become the big deal, when you become the one everybody wants to hear from and learn from and be taught by, and you're in this confirming closed space of being the expert instead of being open and growing and moving forward and continually learning. So that comfort zone, guys, will kill us. Comfort zones are the enemy of high achievement. And we've got to be willing to step outside of our comfort zone. And that's where real growth happens, right? Real growth happens outside the comfort zone. And it isn't comfortable. That's why you're going out of it. Life is hard. Life is real. Experiences, crazy things happen. This is where you get all the great stories, by the way. All of your best stories come when you're outside your comfort zone. So whatever that is in your business, whatever activity that is, this is where you need to be. Okay, right now in Australia, New Zealand, it's been uncomfortable for quite some time to share your experiences with the product, to share what's been working for you. It's time to share that, my friends. It is time to let people know the benefit and the blessing that you have received from being able to experience these products and share these oils. It is time to step out and share and open our mouths, even with all this COVID garbage that's been going on and all the restrictions and all the lockdowns, and it's different all over the world. And I know it's been tough there in your countries. I know it has. But we absolutely can do this. We can step out of our comfort zone and we can master the art of storytelling. Those who tell the stories really do rule the world. Stories capture attention. They capture focus. They capture people's minds. When we were little children, our parents did not say to us, let's go and lay down. It's time for bed. And I'll read you some bedtime facts. At least I hope that didn't happen to you. And we were told bedtime stories, right? Bedtime stories, because stories capture our mind and our imagination and also our memory. And this is what the people you're sharing with also want to hear. They want to hear your stories. They want to share their story. They want to tell you what's going on. What are the issues that are bothering them? We have solutions for the vast majority of those issues. You know that, right? You know that. And we want to share those experiences. And so whether it's a product story, a success story with your business, a financial freedom story, always remember that people are listening to you for the WIIFT. Okay, what's in it for them? The WIFT. Okay, what's in it for them? We are all listening for that all the time. What's in this for me? What's in this for me? That's not a selfish thing. It's just a reality. Okay, it's just a reality. So a good way for you to know if you are stuck in a comfort zone, and maybe you didn't realize it, is to think about this statement and answer this honestly. If you're not going through the emotions, you're likely just going through the motions. Meaning, if there's not an emotional movement within you, right? If you don't feel it in your heart, if it's just the day-to-day rigmarole and it's just it becomes a job with no emotion and no feeling and no passion and no desire, then you are in your comfort zone. Okay, let's step out of it. Let's step out of it and move forward. Okay, in the new business building guide, there is a page I want to share with you that sums up all of the different things that it takes to become successful in doTERRA. what it takes to succeed. This is on page 30 of the Business Building Guide, which you can download right now if you don't already have it. There's a PDF for it on the website. First is your success is up to you. This is so true, guys. This is your business. It's not your upline's business. It's not even your team's business. It's your business. So your success rests on you. Next, you have resources. Oh my goodness. I think we've established that, right? There are so many amazing resources. 13 years ago, right now, if we go 13 years ago in the past, as we were getting ready to start this amazing company, we had nothing. No website, no product catalog. We didn't even have product for a long time. We used to use fax machines to enroll people. If you don't know what that is, ask someone over 40. Just craziness. There was nothing, right? We had to create stuff if we wanted it. So there's so many good resources now available to you. Learn, see, do, grow. This can also be called plan, do, check, and adjust, meaning create your plan, do it, check in on it, see if it's working. If it needs tweaked, make the tweaks necessary, right? Set your goals. I would recommend priority management being part of that, right? Prioritizing the things that matter most, and that will help you accomplish your goals. Success takes time. This is not a get rich quick. In fact, it's probably get rich slow. But once it's built, it's yours, and it's long-term, has great longevity, and it's going to be there for you and for your children and your children's children. This takes work. Okay, we covered that one a little bit already. Effort, right? Exertion. There's definitely, if it didn't take work, there'd be a line of people from here to the moon, right? But this does take work, just like all good things. Growth is key. Growth, as your team, some of us have been stuck, okay? Some of us have been stuck through all this last year, right? No explanation necessary. Having even just a little bit of growth, enroll a person, help someone hit a new rank, host a class, have their first little success, whatever it is. Just that alone will move the needle and will move people forward, and that growth is key. Skill sets set you free. Very, very true. Master the art of inviting. Master the art of promoting. Those are the two most important skill sets in our business. Laser your focus. Okay, what you focus on, what you dwell on, you excel on, right? What you focus in on is what you're going to achieve. And we live in a world of massive distraction. Oh my gosh, it's everywhere. Distraction is at every click, every buzz, every ding on your mobile phone, every Facebook, social media, whatever it is. Distraction is just boom, 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 everywhere. And I feel like that's one of the greatest challenges in our culture today, worldwide, is that we have lost a lot of our ability to focus. And focus is critical. And they finally have grit, meaning you have to have tenacity. You have to keep moving forward. You're going to have days that you want to quit. If you haven't had those days yet, they're coming. They're coming. It's just a rite of passage, right? We all go through those, and that's part of the price we pay. Failure is the fertilizer for success. Failure is part of the price that we pay to move forward. So pay the price, move forward, and keep doing what you know to be true and what you know to be working. One of my favorite mentors is Brendon Burchard. Love his materials, his courses, his books. And one of his quotes in this last year has really sung to me very, very loudly. And it's this: doubt increases with inaction. Just think about that one line right there. Doubt increases with inaction. Have you doubted your doTERRA journey? Doubt increases with inaction. So taking action dissolves the doubt, right? Clarity reveals itself in momentum. Oh my goodness. Okay. Get things moving. Get things moving, and it'll be clear to you what you need to do in your business. Growth comes from progress. For all these reasons, begin. For all these reasons, begin. For some of us, it might be beginning anew. It might be doing a relaunch. It might even be your second or third relaunch. Or maybe some of you are just getting started. Okay, whatever it is, begin. More than ever, our world needs us. They need our product. They need our culture. They need our mindset. Many of them need our business model. The needs far outweigh the demand, right? We have We have so many solutions that we can offer. But you and I, we got to open our mouths and go out there and let those oils do their magic, because they will. They will do it if we are willing to partner with them in that effort. Thanks, everyone.
Purity is nature untouched.
Purity to me means like nothing else.
Purity is finding something in its natural state and allowing it to maintain those qualities, not interfering with it or influencing it in any way to alter its natural beauty.
Purity to me means earth. Whenever I think of purity, it reminds me of how we believe that humankind was created from clay, and everything that comes from earth is pure and natural, and it helps nourish our body, mind, and soul.
Purity for me is love. It's straight from the heart, and it's something that is straight from nature, so beautiful, potent, and powerful in its natural, pristine state.
Purity means safety. It means assurity. It means confidence in using these oils on my children. Purity to me is everything. It's also a pure heart and a pure vision. Purity is our difference.
Purity to me means clean, fresh, and as nature intended. So nothing is added and nothing is taken away. So that's why for me, doTERRA is literally like pure plant magic.
To me, purity means natural, free of contamination, free of adulteration, untouched, but it also means honesty and integrity. And to me, that is everything that doTERRA stands for.
Kia ora from Aotearoa, New Zealand. So purity for me is when I have freedom in my mind, love or aroha flowing from my heart, flow in the body, and simplicity in life. This for me is purity. Aroha atu kia koutou. Mwah.
Purity is removing oneself from any given context and thinking about a greater purpose, a higher purpose that will help and serve others. For me, purity is synonymous with divinity. It embodies love and truth and wholeness. It is love towards humanity, and when we truly connect with others and see past any sort of darkness or despair, we can become beacons of light for hope and healing. I draw on this philosophy daily in my clinic, and I draw on various forms available through science, nature, and prayer. And that is why the purity of doTERRA essential oils is so critical with what I do, because they provide tangible tools for people for hope and healing.
Purity is opening the lid of your doTERRA essential oil bottle and knowing that inside is oil of the utmost quality. Knowing that integrity has been taken every step of the way. Knowing that you're making a difference to the person that you're reaching out to with this oil to help change their life, to save their life, to make a difference to them and their families. Purity is opening that bottle and knowing that you're also making a difference to the harvester, to the communities, to the people who bring it all together. Purity means there's nothing added, there's nothing fake, nothing synthetic. It's purity of heart, purity of connection. Purity is capturing the essence of nature and giving us a vehicle to reach out and connect with others. And purity is why we're doing this and we're in this together.
Hello, everyone.
everyone. I am very excited to be joining with you here for our 2021 convention, and I know that we all wish it weren't online and that we were back together again, and that's going to happen, I think, fairly soon. But I have to start with this. Ozzy, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Louder. Okay. I think I hear something. It's a long ways away, though, kind of distant. I know we've had a great convention so far, the last couple of days, and boy, some people have really delivered. Some of our leaders and Emily and others on their messages, and I know they've been just really fantastic. I'm excited. One thing I'm excited about is that our office, our staff there in Melbourne, gets to actually come to work again and get back together. That's so important. And I also want to say that you're going to see a much greater level of strategic approach to things going forward. We have really been working on this. I know you've heard a little bit about this, but we are bringing it. We are really bringing it, the support from all angles. And so you're going to see a plan. You're going to see a purpose, perhaps substantially greater than what you've seen in the last even couple of years. So I'm excited about that. We're going to help. We're going to help and be there to support you. I'm going to just start by saying, and some of the comments I'm going to make is, I haven't really prepared anything formal, and so you're going to kind of get what you get. And I apologize if that's a little disjointed here and there, but I want to begin with just remembering just a little bit about our beginnings in Australia. It's been a good decade now since our first trips over to Australia, and they continue to be fond memories for me. And so many of you who are such wonderful friends that we've been friends for so long. And I look back on those days and the fundamentals that we did, and how we just taught and presented to anyone who would listen. And it wasn't large groups of people; it was small groups of people. And I remember meeting in some rather strange places. I remember some of the very first Aroma Touch trainings we did. The very first one was down in Byron Bay, and we had 40 or 50 people on massage tables. We're introducing that Aroma Touch technique, and everyone was new. It was new. I remember traveling down in the waterways down in the Sydney area, in the Sydney Harbor area, and sometimes going into just small shops. I mean, there wasn't much to them. Little surf shops down on the beach, and Dr. Hill and I lugging with us back in those days a larger projector that we had, and we would literally just flip over a card table and use that as the surface for our screen and set the projector on a chair. And we would have 6 or 8 people that we would be teaching there. And, it was fun. Many of them signed up. Many of them purchased products as we would fly to the next city. I remember being always in coach, very small quarters, and I had with me a little scanning bar about so big. My little thing in coach, I'd set my office up. I'm sure it was very annoying to those that were sitting next to me, but I'd set my office up in my little space there with my computer and this little scanning bar. All of our enrollment forms in those days were paper. All of our order forms were paper, and I would carefully insert and scan the orders that we'd received while we were flying to the next thing, so that I could then email those orders in a PDF back to the U.S., back to Utah, and we would then be able to fulfill them faster and send them to you and get them out quicker. It was that was the process back in those days. And every time we went over, and Dr. Hill and I would go over and we would do a tour and hit 5 or 6 different cities and places, it would grow. however minuscule, it would grow 25, 30% each time. And anyway, those are just some fond memories with the beginnings. We have much more nowadays, and but I don't think the fundamentals have really changed a whole lot. And I want to talk just a little bit about some of that and some of the things I share today. Just to begin with, we're thinking back and dropping into this pandemic, and I know everybody's kind of sick of this subject at this point, but as we dropped into this pandemic, right before, as some of you know, Dr. Hill and I were able to come out to Australia. It was the last trip we took anywhere, stateside or internationally, was in February when Dr. Hill and I were able to come out, and we hit 5 different cities out there. And some of you who are participating in this convention today were a part of that. And it was just one of those things where I felt almost like somebody was poking me in the back with a sharp stick saying, you need to go make this trip. And when I reached out to the office, it was kind of a last minute thing. And our office, some of our management there, weren't really very favorable to Dr. Hill and I coming out, and they were discouraging it. And I was, okay, all right, forget about it. And then a week or two later, I felt once again like, hey, we need to make this trip. And so I just called up and said, basically, we're coming, ready or not. And they scrambled and put together a great little team, and we were able to go and be with many of you and to have those meetings. And I think back on that with some gratitude, because it was right after that the world shut down. And you know, so I came back from that trip recognizing that we had some things that needed to be done in Australia, and there were some holes and that needed to be filled and repaired. And we worked a lot on that, and you're going to see some real results from that here in this year. So our world is slowly now emerging from this pandemic, from the quarantine, and I guess the question is what happens now? And I know too that it's a little different. In the States, I think maybe we're emerging a little faster than other places. But I know that Australia is opening up now. I know that you're able to get back together. And I know that travel is starting to be lifted a little bit. And, you know, I stop and I ask myself the question sometimes, what have we learned from this past year? What have we learned? What are the lessons? What are the takeaways? And I'm going to just visit a couple of those things here in the next few minutes, maybe. But doTERRA has as its foundation, as I think all of you know, as a foundation of its mission, we're built around healing, and it's not always from the essential oils. You know, there's real purpose in gathering, and there's real purpose in bringing human beings together. People want to be seen. We all do. We all want to be seen, and we all want to be understood. I think we've all learned a bit about, or perhaps we've become a little wiser about some of the powerful influences that social media and living online has upon us. And I know I certainly have. You know, it has the ability to do amazing things in terms of helping us to connect and to keep, you know, up to date with friends and family and our teams for sure. But it also has this amazing ability to impact the peace in our lives, and to, if we're not careful, segment us off into various different tribes of thought. And it even more so, you know, one of the things I think we've learned is that it has this ability to just to separate us in our thinking, and to start to even assign darker meaning to other people's intentions who have differing points of view from our own. That is really real, and to paint otherwise fantastic human beings as being somehow not so good. And I think we've learned. I hope we've learned. I hope we've, you know, we're shifting from this social distancing that we're all very tired of maybe at this point, to maybe offering more of a social grace to one another. And I think that becomes important. I hope that's one of the things we've learned from this past year is let's now transition from an emphasis on social distancing to offering one another maybe more social grace as we go forward in our lives and the things that we do. This is a conscientious effort, isn't it? And we need to make this effort to take back our homes, our places of refuge, take back our relationships, and build and to strengthen those as we go forward. You know, we live in a differing time, a world that's changing. I think of my own parents. You know, my father's that's quite old now, and my mother's been gone a long time. But you know, they grew up in an age of what they call the age of duty, where the good of the whole, you know, you sacrificed as a person for the good of the whole. And today we're in a little bit more of an age of the individual, maybe where sometimes you know, people feel like their own needs should reign preeminent over that of the whole. We see a lot of that happening, but it's not all negative. I also believe I was visiting with a friend, a leader, last night from Iran, and she was sharing some of the views and the challenges that are happening there. And but she made some great observations, and I agree with her 100%. And that is that the rising generation, this new generation, millennial age and Gen Zs and so forth, are more aware of the world around them, and more aware of the different challenges. They want to participate with organizations, with companies who have a greater reason for existing beyond their products, right? That a greater reason that transcends even the products that they provide and that they sell. I've learned over the years, as I've traveled the world and experienced many different cultures, that people are far more alike than they are different. Number one. And number two, doTERRA means different things to different people, and it fulfills different purposes in different people's lives. doTERRA has always been rooted in purpose from day one. And even back in 2010, in our beginnings, early days, we formed our Healing Hands Foundation, and we engaged in that and wanting to give back. We engaged early in the supply chain for essential oils many years ago as well, partly because we needed to with the growth that was happening. But we quickly discovered that this supply chain was far from perfect, and that those who ran it and controlled it, which was a surprisingly small number of people, middlemen and brokers, cared little about those who actually did the work in growing and harvesting the essential oils. And these people, most of them, lived in great poverty and literally surviving in the margins. And we discovered that when we discovered that, and we began to realize and recognize that we could impact poorer countries in a lot of cases, or poorer segments of people economically. That was just such a fascinating thing to us, and it's become, as many of you know, a big part of what we do today. doTERRA literally disrupted that supply chain. We were huge disruptors in it, and we've removed the brokers and the middlemen, and we've empowered the small farmers. There is no other essential oil company in the world that comes anywhere close to doTERRA's vertical integration that we've done so deep into the supply chain. And it's a big part of what we do. It's a big part of what it means to participate in doTERRA today, is to, to recognize and realize the good that's being done there. It's not the easiest way to do it, and it's not even the cheapest way in some cases to do it. But it's the most fulfilling, the most meaningful, and the most worthwhile, and that's why we do it. And there are tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of people now that are directly benefited, and their lives have changed, who are participants and partners with us in the growing, harvesting, distilling of these essential oils. So, people in our world today, as I've been thinking about this, Emily Wright and I were having this conversation the last couple of days, as we're looking at the world, we're looking at the United States, we're looking at Australia, we're looking at all countries around the world, and it's starting to become a little more apparent the impacts that have happened from this pandemic, because it hit the world all at once, which is something that hasn't happened in anyone's memory that's living today. Something that's impacted globally like that simultaneously. And we're recognizing that people are emerging from this a bit confused, in some cases maybe a bit contentious, and definitely many of them feeling rather weary. Now, maybe that describes some of you. I know I've felt some of those things as well. It's this principle. There's a principle. I love principles. I try to find principles in my life. Principles are things to me that represent truth. And what that means to me is it's something that doesn't change. Some things are right and good and true now, but later they might change for whatever the reason. The world changes or society changes or something. But principles are things that never change, and they're things that I can hold on to as anchors. And one of those is, I'm going to call it the principle of gathering. Human beings were meant to gather. They were meant to be together. And as far as I'm concerned, the enemy of our souls, of our persons, wins when they isolate us. If you go back and you study the science of war, that's one of the core things that an enemy tries to do, is to isolate people's ability to be together and to communicate effectively. And so when they isolate us, they win and we lose. And the real global pandemic that started, frankly, before COVID hit and continues today, and actually seems to be growing. In fact, there's all kinds of statistics and evidence that say it's growing, is this global pandemic of mental health issues and concerns. Living lives online, like many of us have been forced to do in last year, but it began to significantly increase before COVID ever hit. Maybe as part of this. I don't know that we as human beings were meant to have our relationships, to have our lives online. Certainly, it is a blessing in many ways to have the technology that we have today. But to have our connection limited to voice or to video, I think there's a big difference to that and personal interaction. When we're able to be with one another face to face, close, there's no doubt we can feel just the energy from one another. We can feel the spirits of other people, and it's important to our happiness, and I think our existence here in this world. You take that to the next level when you start to include things like personal touch, power of touch. I think many of you know what this is. You don't get that from online relationships and interaction. Certainly, there's the power of aroma, smell, that doTERRA brings so effectively. Yesterday, I was involved with some friends of mine and seeing a facility they built up in the mountains, beautiful facility. These friends have had their business that they did was very successful, and they've taken the proceeds from that business and they've built a facility that's designed to help people heal, particularly women, and particularly women who have experienced different kinds of abuse and or different kinds of trauma, and it's such a powerful facility. Several years ago, they came to me and they said, as they bring these groups of women through at a week at a time to get them on a healing path, they realized that some women were bringing with them essential oils from doTERRA. And immediately these essential oils would be pulled in and would become part of these small groups of women. And so they came and to doTERRA and they said, hey, would you be willing to supply, just a kit of these oils, like a family physician kit to help with these different groups as they come through. And we'd like to make this a part of our healing because we've seen that it actually is very impactful and something that was new to them. And so we've done that over the years, and it's amazingly effective. I think that all of you are well aware of the healing power of the essential oils. But like I said to begin with, doTERRA, the healing mission upon which we are based, isn't just about the essential oils. A big part of it is about bringing people together in small groups, large groups, in small teams, even if it's just individuals. It's a big part of what we do. It is what we do. This is a person-to-person effort and organization and business that we do. And I hope that in Australia that you'll get back to that you'll start to go back to the fundamentals. Here in the States, that's what we're doing. We can't yet have large meetings within larger events, and so we're going to the people's homes. And right now I've got people out all over the place that are having meetings in people's homes. In a few days, I'm going to take off and go do 5 or 6 of these myself, and I will be going, flying somewhere in the States here, and then just driving and attending small meetings with maybe, 20 or 30 people in people's homes. And we are going to go back to the fundamentals of what we've always done with doTERRA. And that's the real power. That's how doTERRA really grows and how it moves and how teams are built and how they're formed. And so I hope that you will do much of the same and remember how important it is to get back to that personal experience, that personal interaction, that personal touch. That's what we do. So I look back on 2008. It was a tough time here in the States when we started out. It was the worst recession in anyone's memory, and employment just went crazy, and a lot of jobs were lost, and it was a dark and a time that brought a lot of fear and blackness on many hearts and minds. Sometimes that happens to each of us. And certainly in this last year, I'm sure we've all experienced that. Sometimes I experience it. I wake up in the morning and I feel like I got that black box around my heart, and it just doesn't look good outside. And I have learned that one of the fastest ways I can change that and move that away is by walking in and starting to interact with people. The faster I can do that, the faster I can shake that sort of a feeling. There's just something about that when we start interacting with people that starts to lift that. We as human beings are social people, and we're social beings, and we need to have that interaction with one another. And I hope that you'll start to reach out and start to do that. Don't ever let that despair start to grab your heart and start to close you down. As we start to emerge from this challenging time, it's a time to re-engage back with people, back with our teams, back with our businesses, and start to share the essential oils again. And there's a lot of healing needs to happen. There's a lot of hope that needs to be restored. I hope that each of you have that knowledge and that understanding that you really do matter and that you are seen. People have to be seen. I hope that you help many other people start to feel that they are seen again. And you'll start to cause great things to happen, and perhaps greater things than you even think are possible. Remember that the human heart is capable of a lot of things, and when we approach things with that attitude, that we are going to create that vision, and we are not going to allow negative thoughts, negative comments, and other views to cloud us. When we just continue to plow through that, it changes everything. And that's when we can really start to have an impact on the world and really change the world around us. Each of you has that ability and that potential. And I hope that you're ready and prepared to join this second wave of growth. It's going to be an amazing one. We're getting ready to launch off on this next decade, and I hope you'll come and you'll be a part of that. Thank you for letting me share just a few minutes with you at the close of this convention, and I hope you all feel the strength and the power that I feel and the optimism going forward. And I hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much.